Yeah. Good. All right, turn your microphones, folks. Do we agree? In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by the posting on the bulletin board, town hall, and mailed to the officially designated newspapers listed in meetings annually, indicating that this meeting would take place at Town Hall, 7 p.m. on July 1st.
Joseph Caulfield,
Present.
Amy Lawrence.
Here.
Regina Truitt.
Here.
Priscilla Sarah.
Here.
Judge Yang Peng.
Yeah.
Vice Chairman Jessica Black.
Here.
Chairman Craig Clay.
Here. First up this evening, we have approval of minutes of 5/20/24. Any corrections or changes? If not, who's eligible to vote?
Everyone.
All right. Can I have a motion on that set of minutes?
Move to approve.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next up, we have two memorializations. First, calendar 39/81/24, Matthew and Joan Ralston at 46 East Hartshorn Drive in Short Hills. Any corrections or changes? If not, who is eligible?
Eligible, Joseph, Amy, Regina, Craig.
Can I have a motion to approve the memorialization?
I'll make a motion to approve calendar 3981-24.
A second?
Second.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Amy Lawrence.
Yes.
Regina Truitt.
Yes.
Craig Clay.
Yes. Next up, we have memorialization on calendar 39/73/24. David Marcognum at 1 Alexander Lane in Short Hills. Any corrections or changes? Say correct.
Eligible are Joe, Gary, Joe, Regina, and Craig.
All right, so you guys got a motion to adopt.
Move to accept?
Have a second?
Second.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Regina Truitt,
Yes.
Craig Clay.
Yes. First up tonight is calendar 39/25/23. Lucky Express USA, carried from 5/20 on down. How are you doing?
Very well, Mr. Chairman, Mr. members of the board, Anthony Sorsillo with the law offices of Levitt and Sorsillo in Milburn. We've made certain revisions to this application. I'd like to call one of two witnesses, Mr. Oh.
Just letting them know that we don't have Derek, he's not voting.
Okay, so Derek is not voting on this case, okay?
Yeah.
So 1, 2, 3, 4,
So
5,
6.
6. You got 5 out of 6.
And it's there's an FAR variance.
Correct.
Yes. So, just making you aware of that. So move ahead.
Yes.
Okay.
You're still under oath, correct?
Yeah.
What revisions were made?
Actually, real quick, if anyone here tonight is here on this application, if you'd like to come down to the front to see, if not, please continue. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh,
What
yeah,
revisions
sure.
were made?
Yeah, I just want to talk about the revision we made. The first thing is we took out the garage. We took out the garage. The second thing we do is we reduce the building footprint by 400 square feet. And we reduce the.
Go a little slow.
Yes, so you took out the garage.
I took out the garage.
Okay, so can you just identify where the garage was on the plan?
It's right here before. That's the proposed garage already before. We took it out. And we reduce the building footprint by 400 square feet.
And where is the garage now?
Our garage now is under that's the existing garage we're keeping is under here.
Where it's currently located.
Yeah, it's
The
a
existing
basement
garage.
level.
Maintaining the existing garage.
It's a one-car garage.
Okay. Okay, so besides taking out the new detached garage and just maintaining the existing garage, what other changes did you make to the application?
Of this,
You talked about a reduction of 400 square feet
of the building footprint. Yes,
of the main residence footprint.
yes. Around 400.
And if you can just identify where those changes were made.
We're gonna go to the plan. So that 400 square feet come out from the addition we are making. And also across the garage. The garage around 220, and the rest of square feet, we reduce at the proposed addition.
Well, so is it 220 square feet reduction because of the detached garage and 180 square feet reduction
For the proposed addition.
from the proposed addition? And that was done mostly where?
Right here,
In the rear?
yeah, right here. Used to be, I believe it used to be 20-something feet, that we reduced to 19.
What other revisions did you make?
Yeah, we took out before we had the sliding door out at the back from this room, and we took it out.
Sliding door.
Yeah, there's a sliding door come from this family room or living room direct to the rear yard, we took it out. And now it's a window.
Okay. That doesn't correct your numbers. Anything substantive to the actual application that you amended, other than this?
How about the floor area ratio? What happened to that?
The floor area ratio used to be 49%, I believe, we came down to 41%. So it's a reduction of 8%, that'll be almost 500 square feet we're taking up. Another,
Talk to me about your front yard setback.
the setback, the front stay the same, we didn't change. The proposing would be 20.5%, it stays the same, and the side yard setback conform, and rear yard setback conform.
What about building coverage?
Yeah, building coverage conform, used to be, let me see the number here. Used to be almost 1767, now we reduced we make it conform to 1367. So like I said, 400 square feet reduction.
The rear unoccupied issue, okay? Why is your driveway so big in the back?
Oh, that's because the reason of that, because we keep the existing garage, And that driveway is what current configuration is. I guess you need that for the turning space. When you park a car at the rear, you need a turning space for the rear, and we didn't make,
No, you don't need 38 feet.
It was proposed
I mean, you're-
to remove
that's,
Was it 36 feet?
the rear, I think that's 3 feet, so that's around 35 feet, I believe.
35 feet. That's a lot.
I think, I mean, like 35 feet for the turning space, I think that's what I do for the minimum I will keep. I can reduce to 32 feet, but that will make the turning cars a little bit challenging. Like I said, that's the existing configuration of the driveway, we didn't change it. We can reduce to 35, 32, but I won't reduce it further.
Anything else?
Anything else?
Oh, yeah, I don't know if we made it, but we took out the living room on the first floor, so it's only a family room now, one family room. Used to be living on the front, and we took it out. Second floor, we reduced the size of the master bedroom by 50%, and also the size of master bedroom. Gradually reduce the size. Also, change the look of the house. I believe the design will be more compelling. That's the front of the house, and that's the side. If you look at before, it's like very messy, and the volume just too big, and I gradually reduce it, make it not so big a house. And also that's the rear, and that's the other side.
No further questions unless the board members have questions.
Any of the board have any questions of this professional?
Your front yard setback is 1950. You changed that in order to foot closer to the street. Actually, I beg your pardon, sorry, Eric, going so quickly. On your schedule E, attachment E, you have 19 and a half, but on your V1 sheet, you have 20.5.
So I guess that's the extent of the variance.
Yeah, that's the proposed.
So,
No, it shows 20.5 on the
It says
survey.
20.5 or 19.5. Oh, that's okay, I got it.
right, but it's a 40 foot,
Up to 40 foot, okay,
40
gotcha.
foot
Thank you.
Well,
So it's a
yeah,
nice-
25.
prevailing, right, prevailing, so it's a 19.5 foot deviation.
Okay, thank you.
Question, so in general, this sheet is correct. Have you had a chance to review the sheet that we received? Do you know if these numbers are all correct? That was in our packet.
Yeah, I prepared that.
Oh, so it is correct. There's no changes from this with the
So you're
reductions.
moving the house 5 feet closer to the street.
No, that's due to the how you call it, portico, the front portico.
Right, because
Yes.
I'm not sure the rear yard unoccupied is accurate. It doesn't look
In terms of what's being proposed?
correct, because they only have 1,500 square feet of backyard. That pavement takes up a lot. I don't know what the dimensions are, but I'm trying to figure out. Do you know what the overall size?
it's a much larger deviation prior, but obviously you took
All that pavement.
just a cat in there.
Square footage. I mean, according to the numbers, it's coming up to 300 square feet.
What looks you have that walkway? There's that paver area.
Because the rear yard area is 1993.
This is your house, this is
So
the back,
that's a rear yard area.
right.
Yeah.
It's across 6 feet from here to there is 25, that's not. That's not so. Right.
So now it's 60,
No, that's-
60 times
But you're going
73.
from where the old house was, this is where the new house is.
Yeah, the new one.
So it's 25 feet. Here to there.
That's 33 times 60. 33
This
times
says
60.
25.
No, that's new.
This is the new one.
That's the old one. The new one should be, I believe, this one, that's a-
Okay. All right.
So this we can see.
All right. Okay. Yeah, about 19, okay.
So the pavement is around almost already over 900 square.
Do you know the approximate size of that
Yeah,
area of pavement?
this one,
Yeah. Do you know what that is approximately?
you mean from here?
Well, what is the square footage of this?
Around a little bit over 900 square feet.
Over the-
That would be, I would say 922 square feet.
So you're at 17. Yeah, that is.
Do you agree? Eileen, do you agree?
Yes.
7.3% deviation,
What, how much of it?
7.3% for 39 square feet.
So it's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So everything is a preliminary ratio too.
Yeah. Any questions for the architect?
Quick question, why are you moving the house 5 feet toward the
Over the front.
the front yard setback? Why do you need to move it 5 feet forward?
Oh, it's because the portico we are creating.
Because of the portico.
We didn't push the main wall out, it's a portico,
Just the portico.
not create.
And what is the reason for the portico?
Yeah, we believe the portico will be important to the power design of the house. It will not.
Is it to provide coverage or just to provide coverage or what is the purpose of the portico?
Yeah, the portico gonna create, if I don't have portico here, if you look at the house will look like very tall at the front. When you look directly at the facade of the house, and the portico gonna create some kind of like, feeling or some kind of like, just the overall look of the house, that portico will be, for me, it's a little.
Is it more aesthetic
No,
with it?
Yeah. More aesthetic.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience for the architect? Anybody else?
Yes, Bridget Bogart, planner.
Do you swear from testimony about to give in tonight's proceeding, the truth, whole truth, and the truth?
I do.
Name for the record, please.
Bridget Bogart.
Did you prepare a landscape plan?
I did. Prior to my testimony with regard to the landscape plan, I just want to testify to the planning benefits of the application. And Mr. Chairman, you mentioned why the door was removed from downstairs. At the prior hearing, there was some mention that it could potentially be a two-family with a rear entrance. And so we felt that the door should be removed as a benefit and to ensure that ensure this board that we are not proposing a two-family. So that's number one. Number two, the architect indicated, and I just want to clarify from a planning perspective, the rear yard unoccupied was reduced from 19.4 to 17.7. We still need a variance, but it was reduced. Lot coverage was existing at 51.5, proposed is 53.9. So we still need a variance, but it was reduced from what we previously proposed. The FAR was existing at 28.4, proposed is 41%. Accessory use lot coverage, 51.5, and was proposed, and we reduced it, but we still need a variance. Rear yard unoccupied by accessory structures, existing is 19.4. And again, we reduced this to 17.7. All these are still variances, but we really took into consideration the board members' comments with regard to the potential of a two-family and reducing the variance that are required. We do now meet the rear yard setbacks, we meet the side yard setbacks, we removed the existing concrete from the front, we removed the garage, which are also a benefit from the planning perspective. We meet the front yard, well, I'm sorry, we can't meet the front yard because the existing dwelling, as you can see in the plans, the front yard setback is literally in the middle of the existing dwelling. So no matter what we did, we could never meet the front yard setback. We added the portico, and it was testified by Poe at the prior hearing. The portico was added just to provide coverage as you're bringing your groceries and adds aesthetic benefit to the architecture. We also Poe redesigned the facades to minimize the impact of the dwelling. A number of board members at the prior hearing indicated that they wanted to see additional architectural details, so he added different roof lines and different architectural features to reduce the aesthetic scale of the dwelling itself. So all that being said, we really took into account all the comments that were made by the board. And lastly, I just want to bring up the landscape plan because there were a number of comments at the last hearing discussing that there was no landscaping proposed. So if I could put up the landscape plan, unless anybody has any questions about the numbers I gave and benefits.
No, I was gonna say, so Bridget, the testimony that you gave in support of the variance relief at the last meeting, that still holds true now, especially because you reduced the deviation from the ordinance conditions, correct?
Correct.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. So, that would be your landscape plan.
So I think this is A6.
No, it's according, I think it's A7, because I think A6 was a zoning chart that we marked at the last hearing, because there were some discrepancies about some of the conditions that were stated in here. So this is gonna be A7, which is a colorized version of the landscape plan that was previously provided to the board. Bridget, can you just give a date on the plan, please?
June 5th, 2024.
Thank you.
So starting from the rear property line, there's existing cherry and existing maple to remain. And what we're looking to do is add 8 giant arborvitae as a screening along the back property line. Looking to reinstall lawn area, also not only in the rear, but also through the whole front yard. Then moving forward closer to the house, we've got 6 door fountain grasses that will run along the front, the rear property, or the rear facade, I'm sorry. And then we have the existing holly tree along the northern property line to remain. Also an existing forsythia hedge to remain. Then as you move to the front yard, what we're proposing along the front property line is 4 hydrangeas, and then along the, right by the portico that's being proposed, and then 10, we're putting annual beds in the middle, right next to the portico, and then 2 Japanese holly on either side of the portico itself. We're maintaining the existing Manhattan euonymus hedge along that same property line, and we're maintaining the existing tree in the front yard. So we believe that this landscape plan addresses some of the comments that were made in the prior hearing with regard to screening in the rear yard and addressing the front yard and the portico that's being proposed, because we understand that we need a front yard variance for the portico, and we're looking to just dress it up a little bit.
So, the proposed site plan, okay, doesn't look anything like that.
It's the same plan.
Well, this, what's that?
The second floor addition is.
Well, it comes out, but the way this driveway is drawn here, it like kicks way over. Way further over. I mean, it's all the way over to the what would be the west side of the building.
It's based on the same plan.
Doesn't look like the same thing to me. Your driveway comes way over. paver walk that I guess was being eliminated, but it still shows the driveway coming out that far. Your line almost goes straight, and then you have stairs, it looks like, that go down into the backyard.
The stairs, yeah.
Right, but see, when you look at that line that shows on the site plan, it drifts westward as it comes towards the house. Yours goes straight.
I believe that this portion of the driveway is being removed. And maybe
No, that's not what the drawing shows.
yes.
Guess what, it's being removed.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll make that part of the driveway, we didn't do anything in terms of, if you are turning radius or anything like that, we'll remove that part of the driveway.
Wait, hold on a second. There was a question asked by the chair as to the removal of certain areas in the rear. Are you testifying to that now? Okay, okay, go ahead. Okay, you're referring to the landscaping plan and to your site
So
plan.
do you understand what I was saying, where your drawing, your site plan is very different looking than that?
Yes, yeah. That's a question part.
Will you mark it up?
Then you have to say it as an exhibit.
I'm not out here.
Okay, you're now marking up the site plan. Which sheet number are you marking up?
Should be one.
So this is gonna be A8,
Yes.
and what's the purpose of the markup?
To conform with the landscape plan.
To be consistent with the landscape plan?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so,
So you're basically drawing a straight line from the edge of the stairs
correct,
to the proposed addition, correct?
correct. So that's how we remove.
Does that reduce your lot coverage calculation?
Yeah, we reduce from high probably like 30 square feet or something like that. 30, 40 square feet.
So you're decreasing the deviation further?
Yes, correct.
Any other questions? Members of the board regarding the landscape
Any
plan?
other questions for landscape plan or any questions regarding the proofs of plan?
Planner, I think at our last meeting, weren't we gonna maybe look at other homes in the neighborhood and see what if they all work?
I did look at that. They're all over the place. I looked at the state tax records as well as the county tax records. And throughout the street, it runs from 45% to 20%. And I don't believe some of those numbers are accurate because when you drive down the street and you look at the homes, some of the homes are 2 or 3 story, 2.5 stories, and the tax records show 1,200 square feet. So there was no way for me to verify that they are correct, other than opening building department records.
How many lots there are compliant? This is a compliant lot, 6,000 square feet, you have 6,000 square feet. How many lots on that street are compliant versus oversized?
One, two.
Well, I guess the question is, how many of those are over FAR? If you take 6,000 square foot lots.
There are only sorry. Let me answer your first question. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lots that are compliant on the street as far as lot area.
The rest are undersized, oversized, or a combination?
All over the place. They go from, the largest one is 11,610 square feet.
2 times.
Yeah.
Or 6.
And then you have a number of 5,000 square foot lots.
your research show anything about 5-bedroom, 4-bath houses in that lot? Okay.
No, because the tax records don't show the number of bedrooms, and like I said, the only way to get that information is to open up building department records. And the tax records are, I don't believe they're accurate. I don't think they're brought up to speed.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience regarding testimony for? Come on down.
Just
Come on over, give us your name and address for the record, please.
Andrew Pearl, 10 Mount Ararat Road, right across the street. I don't know if this is appropriate, but there's
Just a question.
well, the question is irrigation and flooding an issue that's addressed during this planning session, or is that addressed through a different department? Because in heavy rains, the bottom of that driveway accumulates water, and I didn't hear anything about any kind of a plan to address the flooding that goes on there.
Okay, this is time for questions. You can certainly direct that inquiry to the planner who just gave testimony. You can ask if there's any.
That's my question. Is there any provision toward, I don't know if it's appropriate to ask now, but is there any provision for remediating the irrigation issues that I witnessed?
I believe you mentioned this question at the last hearing, and the testimony was that if we get approval for our variances, then we'd have to go to the building department and address all drainage inquiries.
So that happens next
The
step.
next step.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the audience for this professional? Any questions from the board? Any comments from the audience regarding this application? Then we'll close the public portion. Do you have anything else, Tony?
No.
No? I'll close the public portion of this. Application. Board members, what are your thoughts?
I appreciate that the applicant has done what I think is their best to scale back some of the variances that they're seeking. I mean, 5% FAR still feels like a lot. And I'm still concerned about, it's just looking too big for the property, too big for the streetscape. But I'm open to what everyone else has to say.
So I would agree with where your comments are. So a lot coverage, floor area ratio, and rear yard occupied are like the trifecta for me. When I see those three things, it sort of leads me to believe that this structure is going to be large on the property. The massing is going to be big. And I'm not totally sure I heard any convincing testimony regarding the positive and negative criteria and how this is going to benefit the master plan and zoning plan to have a house that's 5% over FAR and almost 9% over on lot coverage. But once again, I'm happy to listen to any of my fellow colleagues here and their thoughts.
I'll go just briefly. The houses in the neighborhood are kind of a mix. There's like one very large house at the very end of the street, and that's the only one that looks really big. Everything else looks very much like the houses that exist today. So I echo what my colleagues have said, that it might look a little bit too big for the neighborhood, and it will be bigger than the neighborhood, I think, except for that one house. While I appreciate the reduction, I would appreciate a few more reductions, but I could go either way.
I'll probably be less articulate, putting so much in to a small box, so to speak. As far as floor area ratio, that's one, lot coverage, there's a whole bunch of elements that you're looking to expand. It's not that big a lot, so that's kind of where I am.
I don't have anything different to say. It just echoes what everyone else has said, and I haven't heard anything, to your point, Greg, about the positive negative criteria, why we should consider these, a compelling reason to consider these deviations, based on the positive negative.
I'll open it up. Can I have a motion to open public session, please? Second.
Mr. Chairman, we hear you again, and we ask that we defer the vote to another hearing date.
Eileen, when do you have a date?
So we have two variants here. Assume this goes.
Probably the soonest we could hear it would be our September 16th meeting. After that, it's October 7th.
Sure,
Take it.
please, please.
For those in the public that are here today, and those of you who are at home, this case will be carried to September 16th, no further notice. Please look at Town Hall, the website, for any changes or plans that are updated.
Thank you,
Thank
members
you
of
very
the
much.
board.
Next up, we have calendar 396323. The matter is carried from 5/6/24. Michael and Tanya Ganella, 35 Adams Avenue.
Do we have any recusals on that?
Yeah, we did. Jessica.
Okay, so Jessica Black's recusing from that application.
Now, this one.
Hang on a second.
Because this one, we have some missing people.
That's what we want to figure that out.
Yeah. Procedural things we have to do, but we have to see people caught up on it.
I understand. I appreciate that.
So,
I had, Amy missed the meeting in March when we started this.
So I believe their hearings were on March 18th and May 6th.
Did we have testimony in March?
Yeah, we had testimony in March.
Okay, so Amy missed that meeting. And Priscilla missed, I believe, the May 6th meeting.
Yeah, I have 6 eligible.
So I don't know if either have watched those.
Well,
so did you watch the YouTube?
We were,
Okay, so, and you did not, so you're not eligible to vote on this.
oh,
okay, so I did.
Ms. Lawrence is not?
So you got 5.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I'm assuming you want to move forward, you don't have a team variance,
Correct, yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Three.
So Priscilla
Which-
did watch.
She's good, yeah.
Okay, that's right.
You just have to be certified for that.
Okay.
Yeah, just good.
Members of the board, my name is Anthony Sorsillo. I'm with the law offices of Levitt and Sorsillo in Milburn on behalf of the Ganellas. We're here based on certain revisions, based on comments from the board members. And I have 2 witnesses that I expect to call, the civil engineer, the planner. We also do have the architect in the bullpen again, if needed. I call John Manella.
Good evening, Board. Giovanni Manilio with Mantero Design.
Still under oath.
Still under oath, you've been, eventually been accepted by this board, so this.
John, review the revisions that were made and proposed.
Sure. So I prepared just a colored rendition of the plan that was submitted. I'm not too sure where we're at with exhibits at this point.
Hold on a second.
No problem.
2, 3. A4? It's probably A5, just hold on a second. A4 we already have, so I think we're up to A5.
All right, so A5 is a colored rendition of the site layout with the landscaping.
What's the
entitled-
date on that?
Sure. It's entitled Gunella Residence Site Exhibit with today's date, July 1st, 2024.
Thank you. So this is in our package or no?
No, this is just a colored rendition. Makes it a little easier to see what has been changed and what hasn't.
Is that the only change?
No, I meant, this, it's not different than what we've seen.
No, same layout, just color. Yes, exactly. No problem. All right, so I'm just going to go over the changes that we made to the plans, to the layout since our last meeting back in, I believe it was March. So to start off, we reduced the impervious coverage by eliminating some additional hardscape. So to the west of the pool was a paver area, which had a fire pit. That has been removed. And additionally, we had to remove some of the pool house. So about 4 feet of the rear of the pool house was eliminated. That had a portion that had stairs going into a basement. There is no longer a basement proposed for the pool house. Additionally,
That wasn't a variance though.
Sorry, I said that.
That wasn't a variance.
No, I'm just stating what was changed. And then on either side of the pool house, we had trimmed off about 3 feet of those wing walls as well, further reducing the building coverage for the pool house. Lastly, we removed the roof, the covered roof on the westerly covered patio. So that is a trellis structure as now, and not considered a roof or building coverage. To go over the changes.
Motorized or no?
No.
Hard.
Just hard, yeah. So the lot coverage variance has been eliminated. With the last presentation, we had 16,843 square feet, or 36.5% impervious. We reduced it to 16,109 square feet, which is 34.9%. Per the regulations, 35% is permitted. That variance has been eliminated. The building coverage is still a variance, but we reduced it from our original application of 16.6 to the last application at 15.4. And at this present moment, we're at 14% with building coverage, with the total roof area of 6,436. Where a coverage of 5,992 is permitted, or 13%. So we are over by approximately 444 square feet on building coverage. I do want to note that we are in conformance with floor area. We're actually under floor area by a little over 440 square feet. So even though we are over on building coverage, we are not asking for any floor area or anything to that effect. Lastly, I just want to summarize the variances that we are requesting. One is for accessory uses within a front yard, where the accessory uses are only permitted within a rear yard, unless you're a corner lot, as testified earlier or at previous meetings. This is a through lot, so we do have a hardship with having 2 front yards. We are asking for relief on height of a fence in a front yard. Again, this is with respect to being a through lot with frontage both on Adams and Taft. We are proposing a 4-foot black ornamental fence, twofold, one for a little privacy and one for protection and safety for the pool. And lastly, the building coverage, which I had testified earlier, of 14% where 13% is permitted. Again, we think the deviation is minor. It's not perceivable from the street. Building coverage is viewed from the top, from an aerial, from looking straight down. At Adams, you can't see the pool house at all. The only thing that's visible is the main structure. And Taft is a dead end. I actually not even sure if it's a paper street, to be honest with you. It seems to be a private right of way. And again, it's only traveled by 1 or 2 residents at the very end. That concludes my testimony.
All right. Any questions from the board regarding this application?
The reduction of the size of the pool house, does that give you a bigger setback?
Yes, I'm sorry, that's a good point. So the front yard setback has been increased along Taft. So to the actual pool house itself, it went from 36.3 feet to from 32.1 feet to 36.3 feet. And then from the actual corner of the, I think there's the pool equipment and outdoor shower, that went from 28.3 to 32.9. So a little over 4 feet for both of them. And it's a little different because it is on a curved right away, so it's not exactly the same.
drainage apparatus remains the same. I know you've got like a lot of documents in here about your.
Correct, we're gonna comply with the township ordinance and obviously subject to the town engineer's review, yes.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience regarding this application?
I call planner Catherine Sarmai.
Good evening, Board. Catherine Sarmed.
You're sworn and your credentials were accepted by the board.
Thank you very much. I have an exhibit to hand out to the board. I think we'll mark this A6 then? A5?
A6.
A6.
Okay.
And it's a report dated June 26, 2024, that is entitled Analysis of Building Coverage. So as described by the engineer, there have been some significant reductions in both the building coverage and the improved lot coverage since the initial application and since the revised application at the second hearing. Those changes from the original for the building coverage were 16.6%, which is 7,657 square feet, which was then revised to 15.4%, which is 7,100 square feet, and now is proposed at 14%, which is 6,436 square feet, which is 444 square feet over what is permitted. In addition, as mentioned, the improved lot coverage variance, which was previously proposed, has been eliminated and is now in conformance with the requirements for the R3 zone and is under the 35% requirement at 34.9%, which is 16,109 square feet. In total, the difference from the original proposed application, the building coverage has been reduced by 1,221 square feet, and the improved impervious lot coverage has been reduced by 789 square feet. And I mentioned those just to talk about some of the efforts that the applicant has taken, listening to this board, and to address some of the concerns that have been brought up at the past two hearings. In addition to that, and another effort was undertaken in that an analysis of the building coverage was put together in a report. This board had shown concerns with how this proposed development may be out of character with the neighborhood, and as a result, a planning report was put together. And I'll just quickly run through kind of the steps that were taken and then the different kinds of analyses that were undertaken. So the report includes, at the beginning portion of it, an aerial analysis using publicly available GIS data, orthophotography, which shows aerials. The most publicly available data through the NJDEP for orthophotography is 2020, so it's not entirely up to date because changes have been undertaken. As you can even see on page 2 of 21, that the aerial for this site itself is not up to date because the previous home is still showing on the aerial imagery. With that being said, then a kind of radius around the site was decided upon, and this was not arbitrary. It was intended to try and capture some of the roadways nearby, some of the properties that are directly adjacent, and then thereafter. So it goes from the outer limits are along Lake Road, along Shore Edge Lane, along Parsonage Hill Road, and then down along Jefferson Ave, basically between Lake Road and just past Birch Lane. So that totals 36 different properties that were analyzed as part of this, including the subject property, which utilizes numbers from the previously built home there. And so there actually is mapping data through the NJDEP publicly available that undertook impervious coverage throughout every single county in New Jersey, including Essex County. And so you'll see on page 6 and 7 what that impervious coverage layer or that file that's publicly available showed. It was using technology to help determine what impervious coverage and building coverage existed. And as you can see, there is a delineation even within the data set that showed the building coverage in blue and then any other impervious coverage in pink. Clearly, it's not perfect. You can see for a few reasons. One is that it is based on an aerial flyover, and so anything that existed prior to today was captured rather than up to date. And also, it was any kind of tree lines or shadows could have an impact on that. So it's not perfect. There are limitations to it, but nevertheless, that analysis was undertaken just to see a deeper dive into just looking at it from Google Earth or something like that. Because previously, a window survey, a drive-by was done, and then aerial data was used for a quick cursory review, but this is much more in-depth. And so based upon that data set that shows impervious coverage, a comparative analysis was done of all of the properties from the lot size that's available through tax data and from the building coverage that was calculated from that layer. And all in all, it provides, I think, a pretty good overview showing that, and again, there are some limitations to the data, so this is no means saying that any properties are over on coverage that may or may not be, but that's just to say that the analysis provided that about half the properties have coverage, have overages on building coverage. And some did have on impervious, but because we're not seeking that variance, I don't want to go into those details, but about half. And of those 17 that showed building coverage overages, 3 were undersized lots, and the remaining 11 properties were at or oversized. And so there are some footnotes also to that table. There are some things that were not shown that I just captured just from a visual. Kind of something I caught was that there was the prior home was there, or the tennis court that's shown was not captured within that layer. There's no outline to it, or a pool that was added since the data set. So those are just some quick visuals that were added in. To kind of complement that data set and just a data heavy analysis, we went in and did an OPA request for all of those properties. And we went through every single zoning application number back to 1990 and did an OPA request for anything that was in the surrounding area, and then beyond that even, which are indicated in the table. And this is just to get an idea of, does it match up with that data? And in this case, all the properties, all the 36 that were in that area, 16 OPA requests were requested. It says, I think 15 there, 16. 12 of them came back with information. 4 of them, they could not retrieve those records, unfortunately, for 4 that were in the coverage analysis area. Of the 17 properties that showed overages, 9 different applications, 9 different properties received some sort of approval from the board. And that's not saying impervious coverage or it matches up with that. This was just 9 approvals, 11 applications in total for those 17 properties. And in addition to that, another 11 applications were looked at for properties outside of that area. Overall, of the 11 applications that were over on coverage, 4 of them dealt with coverage. 1 of them with impervious coverage, but 4 of them dealt with different coverage variances that were sought before this board. 3 of them being building coverage. And outside of the analysis area from the data set, 6 dealt with building coverage. I'm sorry, 6 dealt with building and impervious coverage. 1 of them strictly impervious, 5 of them building. And so I know that was a question. There was a question from this board about, is this out of character? It seems like a lot of these other properties are either undersized or conforming with lot coverage. And from this analysis, it shows it's not the case. Some of them have sought and received variance approval back until I think our data showed like 1996. Anything prior to that, they just couldn't retrieve the records. They weren't in outside storage. And so I think even some of these properties probably did also receive approval before then. And that just shows because the 4 we have 4 requests that could not be fulfilled that were in this coverage analysis. And so this is really just for the board's edification, kind of show that we did our homework. We looked thoroughly at, would this application be out of character? And my conclusion is no, this property is, and what's proposed is not out of character with the neighborhood, with prior, zoning approvals for surrounding properties, and I'll talk a little bit more about how that feeds into the variance proofs. And so As mentioned by the engineer, there are now 3 bulk variances that are being sought. 2 of those remain the same as previously. They're C1 hardship variances for the accessory structure in the front yard, because this property has 2 front yards along Adams Ave and Taft Drive, and for the fence in the front yard, which is along Taft Drive, which is considered a front yard, despite acting like a backyard here. And then the other variance, which has been changed now, is for the building coverage, which is section 606.2E.2A, where 13% is permitted in the R3 zone, 14% is proposed. And the building coverage that kind of pushes it over is the proposed pool house. It's a proposed accessory structure entirely that pushes over on the coverage. In my professional opinion, I believe that this proposal advances the purposes of the MLUL, purposes A, C, and I. I believe that this proposal is in line with the purpose of the R3 zone, which the purpose captured in the zoning ordinance is to provide a range of lot sizes for single-family dwellings, development of vacant land in these predominantly built-up neighborhoods to be compatible with existing development patterns, and I think that the report supports that. I believe that the report also provides that this proposal is not out of character with the existing homes and development in the surrounding area. As far as the negative criteria, I do not believe that there are any negative impacts on the surrounding properties. I believe the stormwater management on the property will promote the general welfare and improve conditions for this property and the neighborhood. The landscaping and the new fencing will be an aesthetic improvement along the Taft frontage. This proposal meets the setbacks for the R3 zone, which shows that the oversized lot can accommodate the development without detriment to the surrounding property owners. And pursuant to the Kaufman case, this presents a better zoning alternative because it will treat this frontage along Taft as a true backyard. It'll close off the previous access from Taft. It'll focus more on typical backyard accessory uses like a pool, and the pool house will provide an organized development for storage, for use, and will insulate the actual pool area for visual privacy, which is good for both the owner itself and the neighbors. And therefore, I believe that the benefits, including the stormwater controls, the treatment as a backyard rather than along Taft and access from Taft, substantially outweighs the detriments of the variance being requested. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So your chart here only has one home that even has remotely close to the same amount of property this one does with deviation. And judging by that house, which is 17 Birch Lane, that's a much older home that probably had more property at one point. So when you say it's common throughout this area to see this type of thing, I'm not sure I see what you're talking about. I don't see any other homes of this size property with that kind of deviation. Most are half the size of this property.
I think there's a mix. And of the 17, I noted this on page 8, of the 17 properties that exceeded the building coverage by the analysis, 3 of them were over 45,000 square feet. 6 of them, including those 3, were over 35,000 square feet. And I think that, as I mentioned before in my proofs, that the oversized lot, the nature of the oversized lot does help accommodate this development because it meets the setbacks and it's not a visual impairment to the neighborhood. It's not a detriment to the neighborhood, and it's actually a benefit based on where it's located.
So speak to me about the master plan, zoning plan, how it's beneficial.
I think I brought this up at the first hearing, and I will reiterate. The 2018 master plan does talk a lot about tear down and rebuilds, which I consider, this, even though the house is under development, that this was a tear down rebuild. And there was a strong focus probably in the single family developments, in the single family zones on that. And a recommendation on page 48 of that 2018 master plan says, the planning board recognizes that the single family character of the R3 through R6 zones, the single family, 2-family home character of the R7, and the multifamily character of the R8 zones should be preserved and protected to avoid development that is out of sync with the underlying zoning and neighborhood character. And I believe, as I showed in the report, I do not believe this is out of character with the neighborhood. Looking at the zoning applications through the OPRA request, I do not believe it's out of character. I think it promotes that recommendation. And as I mentioned also through the zoning ordinance, which has the purpose, I also believe that, this promotes kind of character with the neighborhood and not overdevelopment.
So speaking of character, how many homes of lots of this size have this deviation?
20 Adams Avenue showed some deviation. If I look actually, let me look at the final table, which had the actual applications in. The 50 Birch Lane, the application decided on April 11th, 2011 included 14.8% building coverage allowance, which was approved, and the board found that the lot is over 30,000 square feet and the large lot area easily accommodates the proposed increase in building coverage without a detrimental effect on the neighboring properties, which would,
That lot's 0.69 of an acre.
but under that reasoning, if the lot is significantly oversized, in that case, it's over 30,000 square feet. Under that same reasoning, if the lot's even bigger, and we're seeking less coverage than they were, then it can accommodate.
Along the margin though, you have a lot more to do, a lot more to build on.
Well, there's not much. It goes up incrementally based on the 13%, so it's not that much more. But what it's saying is that you can insulate the development.
You have almost 50, 60% more property. From that. And what you're citing is 0.6 of an acre or whatever it is, you have
1.101, I believe. Not quite. 56 Lake. Give me 1 second. 41 Adams is larger, 0.75, so it's about a little under a quarter smaller.
Right, I'm just talking about anything over an acre. I mean, that's sort of.
Well, I wouldn't focus too much. That wasn't the point of the analysis, and I totally understand your questioning. But what I will say is there are four applications pre-1996 that we couldn't get the data for that show overages on coverage. 20 Adams Ave, 15 Taft Drive, 63 Jefferson, and 17 Birch that we could not get. Or maybe those all don't have coverages, but some of them do. And so it's impossible to say what those applications were approved for or denied, or what the subject matter was. But
A lot of these have C1 issues on
some of them have C1 issues. I'd say that exactly the same problem as having that we have.
I would
They
say
have,
that.
they have a lot of them have dual frontages, is what I mean to say.
But that's not, I mean, you don't have a C1 problem in relation to your coverage.
No, a lot of them, if you look at the C1, it wasn't just coverage. It was they were seeking a fence or some other
No,
improvement.
some was, as I'm reading through here, has some anomalies with the property and the layout of the property, which creates some of these issues.
The report included a notation on some of the limitations of it. It wasn't intended to be, it can't be comprehensive because we simply couldn't get all the records. There are probably records prior to 1993 that didn't even show up on the zoning board calendar of applications that we
Some of
had.
these houses are so old that they predate zoning.
They may predate zoning, they may have sought their approvals around that time. We did our best here. It wasn't intended to be exhaustive to say, look at all these houses that have sought variance. It was just to be indicative to say, we are not out of character with the neighborhood. And under some of the same reasoning that was included for some of the approvals prior, that this lot can accommodate the development. And it can be aesthetically pleasing because it can be screened if anyone did have a problem with the development in the backyard. But as I mentioned before, I do believe that the benefits of this, treating this as a backyard without access to Taft, we heard from the neighbors, Taft Drive is not improved, it's not wide, you don't want traffic on that road, we're removing any traffic, it's closed off, there's fencing, it's gonna be privately treated as a backyard, and I think that's the benefit that outweighs the detriment here. And that's the focus really of what this report, the conclusions of this report.
Anyone have any questions?
Question for our council with regard to something the witness said. Is this board bound to observe that same logic that the zoning board did in 2011? This witness made the comment that a previous zoning board in 2011 has stated that using a similar situation according to the witness that they said that the development for that particular property was acceptable. Do we have to abide by that same logic, or are we considered a unique board with our own perspectives on the data?
Every application rises and falls on its own proofs and its own circumstances. And while I will, certainly commend the witness, Catherine, for providing what appears to be as comprehensive an analysis as she probably could have done for analysis of building coverage in the area, and I commend her for that for sure. We don't have the background other than some quotes from those variances that may have been approved in terms of having the full resolution, having the full plan, having, were there objectors? What were the proofs that were presented? So long and short is that every application, like I said, rises and falls on its own facts. However, certainly there's nothing wrong, and I think the applicant should be commended for doing an open request and finding some similarly situated applications where the board may have granted approvals. And if the two circumstances are almost identical, if that's how the proofs ended up, certainly there's a benefit for the board over a course of years for establishing some consistency in terms of how they deal with applications. Looking on the other side, if a board goes ahead and grants 15 building coverage variance applications, and then every year the governing body gets a report as to what the Board of Adjustment did or didn't do, and they see that 15 building coverage variances were granted, and the governing body ignores that, that may be evidence that we don't want deviations, but we don't have any of that.
But we're not bound to the same logic. It's interesting, and it's good to have consistency, but
We're
we're not
not
bound to
bound
that
to it,
same
no.
logic. Okay, thank you.
But it's certainly
But
relevant.
it's interesting, yeah.
And I apologize. In the report, I did note that it's well established that each application has a unique context, stands on its own merits. In no way, shape, or form. I even, thought about not including some of the quotations because of the context is very important. I just wanted to have a full scope of those things, because if I just handed you a chart of resolution numbers, I didn't think it was valuable. But I did look through minutes and things like that. So on my own end, I got, some idea, but boards change, the composition of a board changes, the members change, kind of even the political direction of a town changes, zoning changes. And so in no way, shape, or form was I trying to say you're bound to that. In my own head, the logic was, I thought the logic was worked there. But I was not trying to, pressure that on the board.
This is impressive.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Let's go.
Thank you.
Any comments from the audience regarding this application? I'll close the public portion. Voting members, what are your thoughts?
Okay, I'm gonna go first. I appreciate all the reductions. It's so beautiful back there, by the way. But I'm wondering, I don't have any problem with the accessory use or the fence. Thank you for explaining why those are needed. I think you really changed the fence to be my satisfaction. I'm still a little bit like 1%. You could have come down 1%. So I feel like when the applications come in front of the board, I don't want to be unreasonable. 1% is so small, but I feel like maybe the applicants are being unreasonable. They couldn't have come down to be conforming. 1%. So that would be my only hang up. I await the comments of my colleagues.
I kind of echo that. As a matter of fact, I thank you, planner, for your report. I think I was the person that was asking for that additional info, so much appreciated. Also, for the engineer, we took back on the setback on the pool house. I think it was one of mine too. So, thank you. I see what Regina's point is. I mean, for 444 square feet, that's minimal. Take a couple of pavers out. That being said, I could support the 440 over. They did scale it back, and I could see what you're saying, planner, on as far as treating it as a backyard. I can appreciate that. You did look to add all the trees, the tree effects. One of the things that jumped out of me initially when the application was filed, if you guys remember, the fence was kind of like a wall, boarded wall. That was the killer for me. So, I could support it at this point, with how things are going. I would also, I would again reiterate that if we could lose the 400 square foot, that would be great too.
Yeah, I would kind of go along with the same sentiment. You know, we have a very large lot here, which is very highly developed. And I don't buy the fact that this backyard was contemplated when this house was built. So to add another, 400 plus square feet on a lot of this size is a little hard to swallow because it really is overdeveloped for something as large as it is, so. I'm sure no offense. You guys have any thoughts on this?
I think the applicant has really gone above and beyond in trying to bar this back and get this back. And I would be supportive. I also have never seen such an impressive analysis. I think we really appreciate that. I would be supportive.
Yeah, I've been to, going through the 3 hearing. I think the owner and the professional team is really doing a good job, making through everything, the negotiating in between. And 1%, I think I can be supportive as well.
Is it a vote? Okay. Anyone like a motion?
Move to approve.
And a second?
Was that Regina?
That was it, no.
Priscilla.
Priscilla.
And a second?
I can second.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Regina Truitt,
Yes.
Priscilla Surratt,
Yes.
Jiajing Peng,
Yes.
Ed Planer.
Yes. Good luck with the project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, appreciate
That was my
Thank you.
Okay. I was so close. You know she's going to 26. Yeah, I got it.
Tell me where. We take a break.
Hey,
St. Rose, 52 Trails Avenue. This matter was carried from 6/17/24. Are you going to start?
I'll start, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Joshua Kudre, appearing from the law firm of Sills, Cummins, and Gross on behalf of St. Rose of Lima Church. I was here last time, and I appeared, as co-counsel with Mr. Skolnick, who has decided to venture off to the Grand Canyon to travel on vacation. So on behalf of Amergy Solar, filling in for him tonight, I know you guys are very well familiar with Mr. Triciello.
Yes, Anthony Cercillo from Lebanon Cercillo in Milburn on behalf of Energy Solar.
But considering that he's done two already, I think I'll just take the lead if it's okay on this one.
Go ahead, give me a
All
break.
Great. Just to confirm before we start, how many eligible members do we have? Six. Great. All right, great.
So I assume the applicant wants to proceed with 6.
We will be proceeding, correct. Yep.
Everyone's been sworn in. If you're bringing people back up, if it's someone new, just let us know that it's someone new.
Will do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. So we were last before the board on June 17th, and you heard testimony that evening from 4 witnesses. We had Father Larry, who was here this evening as well. He spoke to the need of the installation from the church's perspective. We had Mr. Joey Tatar from Solar Mounts, who is the carport installer. Frank DeChico, who is the chief commercial officer of Amergy Solar, the solar company. And then Mr. Michael Lanzafama, who is a professional engineer and planner from Casey and Keller. So we presented testimony that evening as to the need for the structure, as to why it was sited, where it is. And we heard the board's comments. After that meeting, we regrouped as a team and went back to look and see if there were other viable locations on this property where we could move this installation. And I don't want to get ahead of the testimony, but the answer was no. And we'll present the reasons why, the areas that we assessed. And we're back before you with the same location, but we have made modifications to the proposal. So just want to preview those briefly. We did decide to lower the carport structure to eliminate the height variance, which is one modification that we think will be beneficial, and it won't impede for emergency access, vehicles, et cetera. We actually did talk about, we actually contacted the forester to make sure that the plantings were permitted where we talked about in the right of way to provide screening. Mr. Lezafama will testify to that, but the answer is they will be permitted. We'll talk through that, what they're going to look like, et cetera, different species, and what we hope to gain there as far as a visual buffer of the structure. And then we also would present the option of painting the structure as well, so it doesn't look like a stainless steel. It will actually match, at least in my view, the fixtures that are out at the church today. So if you're familiar with the light poles, et cetera, some sort of finish to match that. So those are what we'll be proposing this evening. If there are no preliminary questions for me, I'd like to call Frank, who was previously sworn. So Frank, just for the record, please state your name.
Frank DeCicco with Amergy Solar.
Can you spell your last name, please?
DECICCO.
Okay, so you were previously sworn and you remain under oath. You understand that, correct?
I do.
Okay. Just remind the board what your position is again with the solar company, Amergy.
I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Amergy Solar.
Okay, and how long have you been in the solar industry?
I've been in the solar industry for about 15 years and with Amergy for just under 6.
Okay, and at your time with Amergy, approximately how many solar systems have you installed in the state of New Jersey?
I would say probably somewhere around 75.
Okay. Now, you did briefly testify to it last time, and I reviewed the recording for tonight's hearing to confirm, but typically you talk about 3 different types of solar installations, correct?
Correct. There's 3 different things we can do. We can do rooftop, we can do ground mount, and we can do carport.
Okay, and just to remind the board and members of the public, rooftop wasn't a viable option here because
The church has a slate roof, so that's not an option. We can't install solar on a slate roof. The shingles would have to be penetrated, which would crack the shingles. On top of the aesthetic look, the historic aesthetic look of the church.
And then a ground-mounted system?
Ground mount, you need a big piece of property. The other thing with trees are around, you really need be set away from the trees because the trees could shade for a tremendous amount on the ground.
I know it's not what we're posing here, but I've worked on those type of applications for example, on landfills, et cetera. That's what we're talking about, right? That sort of setup.
Wide open fields.
Okay. And then we landed on the carport structure, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then part of the reason it was sited in that location was it worked with the configuration of the existing parking lot.
Absolutely. It worked with the the existing configuration. You had the middle island, which is ideal for the columns to go, least amount of shading there.
And also the proximity to the building.
And the proximity to the building and the electric room where we have to actually tap into the main electric.
Okay, now, so Frank, I know you prepared the exhibit, and if you can, let's hand these out, but we'll speak to it a little bit. The board asked us, basically, strongly suggested that we assess other locations on the property, correct?
Correct. And one of the locations that
Real
was.
quick, hold on to the record. When we get here.
Yeah, while we're passing it around, I want to have him speak too.
This is my first.
Sure. You have a copy here?
Okay, so you've handed out what we're gonna mark for identification as A3 with today's date. Before you get into testimony, what is A3, who prepared it?
Yep, I'm going to qualify it. So, Mr. Simon, do you want to mark the entire packet, or do you want to go page by page?
Everything's gonna be A3, and
Okay.
A3 is gonna consist of 1, 2, 3, 4 pages, right?
Yes. 4 pages, correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we explain then, if we could start with just page 1. Just explain to the board what this is depicting.
So what I did, the last meeting here, the board suggested.
No, hold on, before you get to that. This is an image, an aerial image, correct?
This is an overhead aerial image.
And what is the source of this image?
This is from Google Earth.
Okay, so you didn't prepare it, but you took it from a publicly available source, right?
Correct.
And when did you capture this image?
I took this image yesterday. I'm not sure when the image is from. It could be from 5 years
But
ago.
you screen grabbed it yesterday, correct? Okay, go ahead. And why don't we describe to the board what we're depicting in this area of the property?
So what I wanted to show, the board had suggested the single spots in the back of the parking lot and asked if we could use those. So what I wanted to show is, if you look in the back of the spots, at the back of the parking lot, the tree coverage between the residential and the parking lot, you can barely see actually the parking itself because the trees are shading the entire area there.
Now, Frank, before you move on from that photo, those trees are not on our property, correct?
That is correct. They are the neighbor's
I
trees.
think what would be helpful is if you just literally show the
Sure.
board right now, because you're on the
Go ahead,
page,
lift it.
where you're
Yeah,
referring
I'm
to with
sorry.
regard to both the trees as well as the parking spots.
Okay. So the spots are underneath this tree line, and I'll turn and show. Underneath this tree line here.
Underneath this tree line here. Why don't you draw with this marker?
All right, well,
Now you're modified here.
I want him to be
that's fine.
illustrated. Yeah.
We're gonna mark as A4.
It's difficult to speak to
That's
directions, no
fine.
north arrow, et
That's-
cetera. So
That's fair. So A4 is gonna be a marked up version of A3.
A3, page 1.
So if you can see the red outline, those are spots, actually parking spots underneath the tree line.
Now, do you want to go to A3, page 2?
Yeah, and then what I did is, on the next page, I pulled it down to street view, just so you can get an idea.
When you say pulled it down to street view, so
On
you're still
Google Earth.
using Google Earth from a
Yes.
street view perspective?
Correct.
Same image capture date, so yesterday?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And based on your familiarity with the site, you've been to the property a number of times, correct?
I have, yes.
And does this photograph accurately depict
It looks very similar to what's there today.
Great. Go ahead, describe to the board.
So basically, what I want to do is pull it down the street view, just to give you an idea of the height of the trees that are over that parking spot, those parking spots.
So on the second page of A3, are there any vehicles parked in those spots that you're talking about?
It does not look like it. It looks like they're parked in the middle median.
And when you talked about the trees that are not on the applicant's property, those trees are the ones along the road depicted on the second page of A3?
So they're along, I would say, the fence line. You can see, Mr. Simon, if you look back there.
Mhm.
They're behind the fence line.
And if you look to the left of the page a little bit where the white car is, you can actually see the shading on the ground there. caused from the trees.
And when you say the car on the, so the second row, white car to the left, correct? And beyond that fence, and it's stating for the obvious, and I apologize, but those are single-family residential homes to the best of your knowledge, correct?
To the best of my knowledge.
And those are their backyards?
Correct.
Okay.
So question, you may have further testimony, but what, just to summarize, what is going to shield this from the public's eye, if anything?
Well, the structure, we'll get to that. This is more of the alternative location that we've talked about.
okay.
But yeah, Mr. Lenzafamo will definitely
Thank
touch
you.
on that. We have a couple exhibits to show.
Thank you.
Sure. Any questions on this view? Okay, so Frank, why don't you move on to the page 3 of A3 and explain to the board what they're looking at here.
Yeah, so basically, the solar industry uses a website called pvwatts.org. And basically what it is, it has tracked the weather for over 100 years. And you plug in locations of where you're gonna install the solar, and it pulls the closest weather station to that location. And just based on historical weather pattern, there's so many rainy days, sunny days, snowy days throughout the year. And then you just plug in the size of the equipment that you're installing, and then it will come back and give you an estimated production number. And this this page 3, what this is, when you see the 141,868, that's kilowatt hours, which is the unit of measure for electric. So our proposed system will produce roughly about 142,000 kilowatt hours of electric per year.
And this result is based on the current position, correct?
Correct.
Where we're proposing the solar structure, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and what information, you said this is widely used in the solar industry. What information are you inputting into this?
So you input the direction the panels are facing, the pitch of the panels, and the location, the town, the city and town.
And do you always use this tool when you're planning a solar site?
Absolutely, because part of when we apply for our interconnection application with the utility company, one thing is we're not allowed to install a system that produces more electric than the customer has used over the past 12 months. So when we apply for our interconnection application, we actually have to submit a copy of this to the utility company along with our application, and that shows that it will not produce more than the customer uses.
Okay, and then you said it's customary in the industry to use this tool, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and just for perspective, that 141,868 kilowatts, you said, right?
Kilowatt hours.
Kilowatt hours. What does that equate to for energy savings for the church?
That equates to roughly about somewhere around $22,000 worth of electric a year.
And then from a percentage basis,
It's
how much of their need?
It's going to cover roughly 100%, just under 100% of what their usage was in the past 12 months. Obviously, usage can vary, but roughly 100% of their usage.
So real quick, your DC size is 122 kilowatts, correct? That you
Correct.
generate from solar,
Correct.
and that's like 1,000 amp service, correct? It's 3-phase in that,
I believe, don't hold me to it, I believe they do have 3-phase there.
and what's the service, about 1,000 amp service in there? That sounds big.
I don't know what the service is. We already received the electrical approval for this, so everything was sized appropriately. I'm not an electrical engineer. I do know a little bit about the technical, but I don't want to guess and give you wrong information.
Any questions from the board on this?
So just to gauge alternative sites, potential alternative sites, just go back to the roof. You said it can't go on roof. Could you, on slate rather, could you remove those slate panels and put it in a square? Not on slate, but on some other, like remove a portion of the roof, just a small portion enough to accommodate the panels?
Well, the roof would have to, slate would have to be totally removed and then an asphalt shingle roof installed.
To answer your question directly, theoretically, you can do anything, but that's not within the plan for the church. The historic nature of the structure, et cetera, has been there over 100 years. It wasn't within the plan.
What, but the carport is probably not also within the historic look of the church.
It wouldn't be, it's an accessory structure, so it would be in the parking lot, but yeah,
Yeah, right.
fair
So-
point, sure.
Oh, so it could possibly be put on the slate roof if you remove those pieces of slate and put it on
think it's
asphalt in those areas
The-
with the panels.
The entire slate roof would need to be replaced
How
and
many
then
panels? I'm sorry. Like,
We
It did look
would,
like it
we
was
would
taking
not
full
fit,
roof.
yeah, we would not fit this whole entire, I'd have to go back and look at it, but we would not fit this entire system up on the roof. The roof has, all different orientations and angles, so we would not be able, it would be a much smaller system on the roof.
And you haven't done an analysis of any type of visual impact from the roof, it being tilted, correct? If you had it, you could go through the solar panels.
Correct.
Mr. Lenzafamo might be able to speak to that when he testifies as well.
Because you put potentially in the back, I mean, I know there's the front is probably the most offensive for anyone look aesthetically concerned, but just saying most panels are on roofs. Generally, correct? I'm saying that, but I should ask you that. Are most panels on?
There's a mix.
I don't, yeah,
I mean, the witness can answer.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a mix of all three, ground mount, roof mount. Amergy ourselves, we do mostly roof mount, but the industry as a whole, I would say, especially if you look at residential involved, then obviously it's a lot more roof mount than others. But in the commercial world, it's probably an even split between roof and the other.
And churches?
And churches are, well, the majority, if they don't have a slate roof, we usually put them on the roof.
But you did hear testimony at the last hearing from Mr. Tatar, who testified, I believe he did a similar installation at a yeshiva, correct?
They did, yes.
Yeah.
That was not an Amergy
Correct.
install, but yes, they did.
Sure, so page 4.
So, and the last page is page 4. What I did was put the shading estimate into it and show you if we did install it back there.
When we say back there, are you referring to the red rectangular area on A4?
I am.
Okay, go ahead.
It would produce roughly about 59,000 kilowatt hours of electric, which is less than half of what the system in the proposed location would produce.
Frank, to be frank, would there be a project, would there be a project with this sort of output?
No, there's not one solar company or investor in the whole entire industry that would do a project like this with the production. The return on investment is based on production. Right now, it would be a 5 to 6 year payback with the current proposed carport with the 140,000 kilowatt hours. If we did this, we'd be looking at probably a 12-year payback, and there's not one company in the industry that would do that. That would kill this project.
And if there are no questions from the board on that, you heard me proffer in my opening remarks about the reduction in height. Can you just confirm what the height will be?
Yes, so the height will be just under 18 feet, so we do not need a variance for that.
Because 18 feet is permitted in the zone, correct?
Yeah, so that was like, you were was it like 14 feet under the lowest truss and then you went up? Is that?
Then it was going up to 20.
20.7.
It was at the peak, correct.
Yeah, and so what's it now, like, what's it now at the lowest versus the highest? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, so what they said, I believe, was going to be 13 and a half feet in the
Of the truss,
middle,
so the truss
right,
meets
which is
the-
in the middle on the median it sits.
Right.
And then the Y will go out to just under 18 feet.
Frank, do any of these figures that are on the 3rd and 4th page of A3, do they get altered due to the fact that you're reducing that height to below 18 feet, whether it's the array tilt or otherwise?
No.
And I think that's consistent with Mr. Tatar's testimony at the first hearing when they talked more about height as a function of clearance, et cetera. So I asked that
was the
question.
motivation for having it 20 feet.
But if it comes, if we're lowering it, doesn't the array tilt change?
Well, it's the angle, Mr. Simon. I asked that exact question when we were preparing for the hearing, so.
Right,
yeah.
but you're saying, so the azimuth doesn't change either?
No, it's going to be the same as was proposed.
And then the reason we started at the 20.7 and can do it for this is what? What was why was it 20.7? Like, what was the reason for that?
The company that installs the carports for our solar mounts, that's their normal specs.
Okay,
So
okay. So it wasn't for any particular
that's what, no,
site-related reason that you had to be at 20.7?
no, they send it over to us, and to be honest with you, I never looked at it, the height.
Another question about the angle, is flat or angled?
It's going to be a Y.
It's going to be a Y to capture the most sun rays, I guess, or solar energy. What happens when it snows?
Well, snow will accumulate on the panels. The panels are black, the panels are black. So normally, just as if you're driving around and see a residential system that has black solar panels, the snow will melt off the panels before anything else. And the panels, and I believe we talked about this at the last meeting, it's not a solid roof in there. The panels are butted up against each other, but they're spacing both longways and widthwise. And just as if it was, it would melt and fall between the panels.
Okay, because in a residential, if it's on a roof, it's automatically on a pitch. I would think this, go down. But so is the pitch of this Y similar to the pitch it would have on a roof?
Well, roof pitches vary, but most pitches, especially if you're looking at residential, most pitches for a residential are somewhere between 20 and a 30-degree pitch, which is pretty substantial. So this is going to be pitched much less than that.
So snow could potentially accumulate. Will that affect the energy that you accrue?
Well, it's in this report. This report is based on historical weather and snow in this area, and this actually has a breakdown each month. And the majority, even though this gives you the annual production, the majority of that production is going to be done in April, May, June, July, August, and September. You're going to get very little production in the winter anyway. Through a little bit of snow, it'll still produce electric. It's the UV rays that create the electric.
Would you say that because it's at a less pitch than it would be on a roof, that it will collect less than the average would if it were on a roof?
I wouldn't think so. I would think it'd be pretty similar.
Because it might be covered
It might
with snow
slide
or
off
ice.
faster on a high-pitched roof where it would not here.
So it would, on a high-pitched roof, the snow would probably melt off sooner than this.
It would melt and causes issues on a high-pitched roof too with the sliding. Because, keep in mind, a roof that's pitched at 30 degrees is sliding off. This is going to be much less.
Right, so it's not going to slide off as quickly. So it
Correct.
might be less.
Correct. Not less production. This production number takes into effect a common
I'm
snow.
not trying to say, I'm saying it would be more energy production if it were on a roof because of snow. It would slide off faster on a larger pitch.
It's possible. I mean, I don't have the exact answer for you. But again, it's very minimal production in January and February compared to the rest of the years, the rest of the months.
And that's consistent between roof mounted or solar?
Correct, or ground mounts.
Less, but even less with this. Okay, thanks.
Potentially.
I do have one question. You probably adjusted before, if we lower it, I think the lowest point is 13 feet and the highest 18 feet. Have you consulted any emergency truck and then do any analysis?
Mr. Lenz-Palmer will touch that. Our professional engineer will touch it. Good question.
Any other questions? Anything else? Brian?
Not from this witness.
Any questions for this witness? Further questions?
Oh, actually, I did have one. I apologize. The painting.
Oh.
I don't testify, remember. I only just set the stage. So just confirm.
Yes, we could paint the color. What was suggested is that the church has some light posts, some decorative light posts that are black, so we can match the painting of the array to match the light posts.
But you'd be willing to work in consultation with the township's professionals to pick a color that works?
Absolutely.
Thank
Frank, have you had an experience where you've painted carports?
I have not, but the industry does paint them all the time.
Have you seen any painted carports in New Jersey?
I have not.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience?
I just have this question.
Excuse me, my name is Jeffrey Feld,
Just your address for the record. please.
11 Alexander Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey. Prior in your testimony, you talked about payback in an investor, and that if you didn't get to a certain rate, they wouldn't do the investment. Who is the investor? Is the investor the church, or are you syndicating to some area? Because you used the word payback and investor. Who's the investor? Is the investor the church?
It's a common arrangement in the solar industry, but you can speak to it, Frank.
Just explain it,
And-
financing.
Right, there's a lot of different investors out there. In this instance, the investor is the owner of Avergy Solar. So we are paying for this, and there's no money out of pocket for the church. We will recover our investment over tax benefits and the state incentive over time.
which is consistent with your arrangement with other.
Right, other
correct?
investors do the same thing. Other investors wouldn't touch a project like this, they're very small. The investors look for, multi-million-dollar projects. But the owner of our company, he takes on the smaller projects and does it for the churches, for the Archdiocese of Newark, which we have a partnership with.
Your answer is obviously addressed to the question, and the person who answered, our purview up here is well outside the financing of the project. Any other questions for this witness? There'll be comment at the end if there needs to be comment for this application.
Sure. I'd like to recall Mr. Michael Lanzafama. Thanks, Rick.
Good evening, Michael Lanzafama with Casey and Keller. I acknowledge I'm still under oath from the last hearing.
You got ahead of me.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. And he was previously qualified as a professional planner and professional engineer,
Yes.
and your licenses still remain in good?
Yes, they are.
Okay, good. So, Mike?
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
So after the last meeting, we heard the concerns of the board about the tree proposal that we had proffered. So we checked with the township forester, Ms. Poffer, I think her name is. So she had indicated that she had no objection to us planting the trees within the township right away. She wanted to make sure that when we made the proposal, if the proposal were approved, that she'd want to review the planting details with us. She'd like the planting to be between the curb and the edge of the sidewalk. And if any sidewalk were to be replaced, we would put in the appropriate root barrier in accordance with the township standards. We had originally proposed a linden tree for the species. She thought there might be other species that would be more appropriate, and she'd be happy to discuss those. One was the Queen Elizabeth maple, which is a very similar tree. What we had done in an effort to help present that to the board to get them a feeling for how these trees along the street might help obscure the view of the panels, we prepared an exhibit that I'd like to hand out.
Okay, Mike, while you get the exhibit, this is a rendering, correct?
Correct.
And this was prepared under your direction?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And as you hand it out to the board, this will be Exhibit A5, Mr. Simon, I believe, correct? So as the board members are getting it, why don't you speak generally to how a rendering like this is prepared? And then we can talk about the specific image.
What we do is, what has been marked as A5 is entitled P1, St. Rose of Lima, Perspective View Number 1.
With today's date?
With today's date prepared by my office. And what we do is we use the software called Photoshop to take a street view of the area along Short Hills Avenue, which this represents. It shows the existing parking lot with some cars already parked in it. And then it superimposes into that image the solar panels. Then on top of that, we added renderings that showed the trees that we would be proposing at probably a 5-year growth rate, planting them initially at about 18 feet. And then what's shown on the exhibit is what they're projected to be after about 5 years. So as you can see, they don't block it completely, but they do soften the appearance of the panels and the carport from across the street. There's about 4 single-family residential properties immediately across the street. And if you recall from prior testimony or visiting the site, those homes are elevated from the street level. So the canopies of the trees will help obscure the vision of the panels from those homes across the street.
And Mike, I'm just going to state it for the obvious, the trees that will be planted if this application is approved won't be translucent, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, good. That's just to show the effect of
Right.
what's behind it. So
Exactly.
just to clarify for the record,
Yes.
we haven't invented a new method of
Yeah,
planting.
and we're proposing 10 trees to be planted.
Okay, Mike, why don't you, I know you have another exhibit.
Yeah.
I know the species is still sort of to be determined. Do you want to
Yeah.
show the board?
Yeah, we downloaded an image. Unfortunately, I didn't bring enough copies, so you may have to share. And what this photograph is a photograph of is the Queen Elizabeth maple, and it gives you an idea of its shape. The reason we were proposing these types of trees is because they're somewhat columnar in shape, and they provide good screening at the lower level. And as you notice, as you go towards the peak of the tree, it narrows up. So there's less possibility of these trees impacting the solar panels by shading.
And where was this, you said you downloaded it, where was this image taken from?
There's a website, or my landscape architect got it for me. It's a website that typically is a nursery, various nursery websites that show these typical trees.
And you're familiar generally with the species of tree, and
Yes.
that's what it's.
And what species of tree is this?
Queen Elizabeth maple.
And this is what the arborist meant.
That was one of the ones the arborist, right. But we said we would meet with her and finalize the species,
I think
but they would be similar.
And it's just to give an idea to the board, right, of the type of screening that we're looking
Exactly.
to achieve.
Question, is this a deciduous tree?
Yes, it is.
So in the winter, the leaves will be off.
That's correct.
So in the winter, it won't be camouflaged.
That's correct.
And we certainly, I think I could speak for the applicant to say we wouldn't be opposed to some sort of evergreen tree, but we would defer to the forester. So,
yeah.
I was gonna ask, is there a reason why you didn't ask about or, an evergreen tree?
But remember, we're planting it, it's a street tree, basically. It's acting as a shade tree. It's got to be high branched so people can walk underneath it, not obstruct the sidewalk.
plus,
An evergreen tree wouldn't do that for us.
To a Mediterranean.
Yeah.
There are some Mediterranean varieties, but
and then I think, Mike, you said one more.
Well, it's just, I believe we had submitted this the last time.
But it was slightly modified, I
Yes,
believe,
this was
correct?
slightly modified. This is a plan view of showing the location of the trees we just spoke about.
A7.
And this is indicated as L1. And this is the, oh, I'm sorry.
So what is A7?
A7 is a partial landscape plan identified as sheet L1. And it still has the date of June 17, 2024. However, we did add, there are two notes at the bottom of the drawing that we added just the other day. And we neglected to update the date on the drawing.
And Mike, were those notes added as a result of your conversations with the forester?
Yes, there were.
Okay. And what do they say specifically?
What I had testified to, that the final tree species will be selected in conjunction with the forester, and that if any new sidewalks are being proposed, that a root barrier would be installed for township standards in conjunction with the township forester.
And this shows the proposed tree plantings extending beyond the structure, both to the left and the right, correct?
That is correct.
Following the natural curve of Short Hill Avenue?
That is correct. There's existing oaks out there, 2 existing oaks, and we're kind of filling in with the maples.
Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Lonzafama?
I did want him to just briefly address, Mr. Lonzafama, as a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, you prepared numerous site plans in your career, correct?
That's correct.
And as part of the preparation of those site plans, you also design driveways, drive aisles, circulation patterns, and layouts for sites?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you, as a professional engineer, have any concern with the proposed height that we were talking about of the carport structure?
No, because the way the panels are arranged, they're elevated as they approach the drive aisles. So the drive aisle area is well more than 14 feet above the traveled surface. So they should not impair any emergency vehicle or delivery vehicle that might utilize that driveway area.
And I know you previously testified at the last hearing about the variance relief that we're requesting from as far as a setback goes. To quantify that for the board, we're seeking a setback variance in the rear portion of the property.
That's correct. There was a 25-foot buffer requirement. We're proposing 11.2 feet. And in the front setback from Short Hills Avenue, the requirement is 100 feet. And at its closest point, the panels would be 42.2 feet.
So really, we're seeking relief for that 58 feet,
That's
plus or minus, correct?
That's correct.
And in your opinion as a professional planner, do you believe that the mitigation measures that we've proposed this evening, which are a modification to the original proposal, reduction in height, the additional landscaping, the painting of the structure, will mitigate any negative quote-unquote visual impacts?
Yes, that's my opinion. As I stated in my initial testimony, this advances the major goal of not only the municipal land use law to institute solar panels or energy saving measures whenever possible. Your master plan as well speaks to that very issue, where it suggests that we encourage private property owners to utilize solar panels and or energy efficient measures to improve not only the situation for the locality, but for all of us as a species with what's going on in this world.
And I know you described, the reasons from a planning perspective as to why this is a good location. But just to confirm for the board, if we were to relocate this anywhere on the property in the parking lot, we would still be seeking a deviation for setback to Short Hills Avenue, correct?
Absolutely, because you could see from the exhibit on my left, which is the site plan drawing that was submitted, you can see the unusual configuration of the property. That leg, that far left leg is very narrow. So no matter where the panels go, we would need a setback variance from Short Hills Avenue.
And notwithstanding the alternative site analysis that we undertook and that was explained in prior testimony, particularly with location marked on Exhibit A4, essentially putting it closer to the rear yards of single-family residential neighbors.
Right. In my mind, that would have even a greater impact from a planning perspective.
I think that's all I have for this witness at this time.
Just have a couple questions. What is the closest building on the Short Hills Garden parking side from this solar array?
If you notice, if you go to drawing 1 of 2, which is the covered site plan, you can see the closest building is actually a garage, and that's located probably about 30, 35 feet from the panels.
And Mr. Lenzafama, on that same drawing, I believe to the left of the garage is, what is that, a refuse enclosure?
To the left of the garage on, yes, immediate at the end of the parking stall is the refuse enclosure.
What's the closest residential used building from the array?
The closest residential
On the
building.
Short Hills apartment side?
Oh, on the Short Hills apartment side, that's gotta be more than a football field away.
So 300?
The closest one. is-
Closest about 300 feet away more?
Correct.
Okay, and then what about across on Short Hills Avenue?
Across Short Hills Avenue is probably about 130 feet.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Lenzafama?
I just have one. In this drawing, this blue line is the property line.
That's correct.
And can you just remind me what's up here? In this section of the property?
You're looking in the.
So we're referring to what exhibit is that, Mike?
If you can
This
see
is
it.
L1, sheet L1, the landscape, partial landscape plan.
Exhibit A7, correct?
Yes. So the area in here is immediately behind the garages.
Yeah,
That's this area right in here. It's a garage, I believe, is in that area.
is that what that is?
Maintenance garage.
That's the maintenance garage.
Thanks.
Question then, did you consider putting the solar panels on the maintenance garage?
I didn't.
It's not enough I'm being told it's not enough surface area.
It's not enough surface.
It's
though,
not a large enough
to put
surface.
any of them? I guess could you split it, just thinking outside the box.
Frank,
I'm sorry.
come up.
So just, if you can just repeat the question for the benefit of this witness.
Yeah, so the question was, did you consider placing solar panels on the maintenance building, either all or portion of it?
Yeah, we looked at it, but it's just not big enough. The panels are, just to give you an idea, the panels are about 6.5 feet long by about 3.5 feet wide. So, you know, we wouldn't be able to get many panels up there. And as long as we were doing the carport, we just put it all up there.
And how much trouble would it be if you put some of the panels on the brick garages? Would that reduce the size of the structure that's proposed?
No, it would not, because the amount of panels that we could put on there wouldn't, it wouldn't be enough to reduce it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one more question, like, have you considered this tree? Like, it looks like it's a very high tree, and on the image you are already showing, it has the shadow on the location you proposed already.
There will be some shading from that tree, yes. We're gonna trim the tree slightly, but it will create some shading.
And, Mr. Lonzafama asked Frank about the issue of painting these carports. Do you have a planning opinion on that?
As far as painting them to help obscure the view or make them less offensive, if you lack of a better word. I've seen it done in one location at the Somerset Patriots field. They put in solar panels and they are painted black. And they do look a little less obvious. So I don't see it as a negative.
That's part of a large parking field, though.
Correct.
Correct.
The fact of the matter is, I don't think we're trying to skirt it. It's going to be seen, Mr. Lonzafama, if it was put in a conforming location on the property, it would be seen,
Yeah,
even though there are.
You'd still be
you'd
able to
still see
see
it.
them from Short
So-
Hills Avenue, even if we had that distance to set it back.
And as a planner, that's the sort of give and take with these renewable energy projects,
That
correct?
is correct.
Okay, I can't help myself. Have you considered Mediterranean cypress trees, that tall skinny trees in that Everglades?
We would talk to the forester.
We can certainly talk to the forester, you can make that recommendation to
You can
her.
put a
and
bunch of
see
them
if
that would
she-
really obscure the view from Short Hills Avenue.
I don't think we'd have an objection to whatever the foresters
That's
there.
whatever the township would like to
But-
see.
Whatever, yeah.
Did the forester recommend a minimum height at the time of planting for those trees?
She did not.
But you, Mr. Lonzafama, during your testimony, I believe, you made a reference to it, right?
Yeah, about 18 feet.
18
we
feet at the time of
estimate.
planting, so they would maybe
About a
get to
3-inch
25.
caliber, yeah, about a 3-inch caliber.
Right.
Which is not an insignificant tree.
So the scale of this isn't too far off.
That's correct. It projects probably a 5-year growth after the initial planting.
Any other questions for Mr. Lonzafama? Any further testimony?
Not at this time.
Any questions from the audience for Mr. Lonzafama?
That's all I have right now, Mr. Chairman, subject to my right to briefly sum up after the public.
Mr. Solo,
Yes.
do you have any?
No.
No.
Any comments, any other questions from the board regarding any testimony heard so far? Then I will open it to the public for any comment regarding this. Come on down, come forward. Your name and address, and we're going to swear you in as well.
Right. Do you swear from testimony about to give in tonight's proceeding be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I swear to God.
Your name and address for the record.
Frank Fehrenbach, 49 Linden Street, Melbourne, New Jersey. My wife Tiffany and I, Fehrenbach, Fehrenbach. My wife and I have been Melbourne residents for nearly 20 years. My wife ran PTO, Wyoming School, and multiple other schools. Been involved with Melbourne Short Hills Youth Baseball many years. Scouts, been an active parishioner at St. Rose. It's interesting. If everybody could look up here, the Township of Milburn, established 1857. This church established 1852. Older than the Township of Milburn. It wasn't at that location, moved after. But this church is literally the cornerstone of Old Short Hills Road and Milburn Avenue. You all know it, passed it hundreds of times. This is important for Father Larry. He's spoken about this every week at the church, right? Over 1,500 families. And when you all sit here and look at this, we're talking about a parking lot, right? This isn't a stream of colorful fish. Right now, it's a parking lot that's a blacktop. And we're talking about putting some solar panels on top of the blacktop that's going to make it carbon neutral and beneficial to the environment. So I was kind of surprised that Father Larry asked a few of us to come and speak tonight. Anyway, I think you know where I stand on this. It's important for the church. I think it's important for the environment, and I think it's important for Milburn Short Hills.
Thank you. Any further comment? In that case,
The only thing I would just add.
call
Yeah,
for
Do you swear affirm
Jeffrey-
testimony? Do you swear affirm testimony about to give tonight's hearing, the
Yes.
truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Name and address.
Jeffrey Feld, 11 Alexander Lane. My only comment is to make sure the record is complete, because at the first hearing, the chair asked questions, she swore in the board secretary, and she talked about the application and why we're here. I think the application that she referred should be marked as an exhibit for why we are here. It has nothing to do, based on the testimony as to the church, is that something happened, fell through the cracks, that we have a contractor that I think the testimony, this is their first carpool, and something fell through the cracks. And I think the record should reflect the reason why we are here, something fell through the cracks. And I think the record should be complete when having the application.
Yeah, I was going to advise the board that the reason why applicants come before this board is because they need variance relief, right? And why or how it ends up that they need variance relief, we don't get involved with that. They have an obligation if they want to get a permit to get a variance under certain circumstances, and that's why they need to come before this board.
any other further comment from the audience?
Do you swear affirm testimony about to give tonight's proceeding be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record.
Tiffany Fehrenbach. That's my husband, Frank, also 49 Linden Street in Melbourne. I just want to add one more thing. I understand your objections in terms of visuals, but this has come before you and been notified to the public twice now, and no neighbors. The people who are the ones who are going to be looking at it have come forward to object to this. Also, 2 of the houses that are across the street are owned by the parish. So they probably won't object to the carport. But I do want to point out that there have been no neighborhood objections. You guys might not like how it looks, but the people who are looking at it aren't here, and they haven't objected to it. And, driving by, there's the high school's there, the Chanticleer, the old Chanticleer is there, but it's not, you're not taking away much. You can still see the church without looking at the carport. You can still observe the beauty of the church and the historicness of it. I don't think that the carport, which is going to help cut the cost of the church and help the environment, is enough to take away from that. So I hope that you will consider the application.
Thank you. Any other comment? In that case, I'll close the public portion of this application.
So just again, to reiterate regarding housekeeping, there's a use variance, formal use variance, or use variance is required as part of this application. It requires 5 affirmative votes. There's 6 board members, so that means you have to go at least 5 or 6. Does the applicant want to proceed with a deliberation and a vote on the application? Alternatively, the applicant can decide, if they so choose, to carry the application until such time as another board member can become eligible by listening to the tape, et cetera, and then the applicant would have a full complement of 7 board members, and they would just have to go 5 for 7 versus 5 for 6.
Mr. Simon, I appreciate the counsel. I always do. I've conferred with my client. We would like to proceed to a vote this evening. So thank you very much for your time. Yep.
So let me just kind of remind the board, and I got into this a little bit at the last meeting. So we're dealing with a solar carport array that's being proposed here at a church. So solar panels under municipal land use law, specifically by statute, not just by case law, by a judge, but by statute, by the legislature, they've been deemed inherently beneficial uses. That means that they are a use that is worthy to be included for various reasons throughout the community, not just in Milburn, but throughout the state of New Jersey. And also churches just so happen to be inherently beneficial uses. So here we have double inherently beneficial use. So what that means is that the presumption is that such uses satisfy the positive criteria for the variance relief that is being sought by the applicant. Now, it's presumption because that presumption can always be rebutted by testimony by the public, by objectors, et cetera. And as we just heard recently by Tiffany, no neighbors have come up to provide any evidence or testimony in opposition with regard to a rebuttable presumption on the positive criteria. So then you get into the negative criteria. And typically for a pure use variance application, you're trying to put a use in a zone where it's not permitted, you have to meet what's called this four-part seek a balancing test, where you first identify the public interest at stake, and then you identify the detrimental effects by the application, and then the third prong is to see if there's any mitigation or conditions that can be imposed to reduce the detrimental effects. And then the fourth prong is you weigh the positive and negative criteria to determine if on balance the positives outweigh the negatives. That's for a pure use variance not permitted in the zone. Here we have a use that is certainly conditionally permitted in the zone. Solar panels, solar arrays are known to be accessory to permitted uses such as church and institutional uses. So we look at the conditions and we have 2 issues, both of which have to do with setback / buffer. One to the apartments and the other across from Short Hills Avenue. And I think that what you need to do, I don't think the burden is so high on the applicant that they need to even demonstrate entitlement to the negative criteria via the seek a balancing test. I believe that the appropriate review, although that can be persuasive, is whether you evaluate the impact of those setback deviations upon adjacent properties and whether they will cause such damage to the character of the neighborhood to be deemed substantial. And then also, even for inherently beneficial uses, you have to prove not just that the particular deviations will not cause a substantial detriment to the neighborhood, but will also not substantially impair the master plan and the zoning ordinance. And typically, especially when you're dealing with inherently beneficial use, such as solar panels, where it's a sustainable energy is promoted by the master plan, it's usually found typically that a board will, the applicant will meet at least that second prong of a negative criteria regarding inherently beneficial uses. So with that, long-winded or otherwise, that's all I have to say. With this.
So with that, comments.
I would say that from my perspective, I would support this application, and I do see the positive outweighing the negative and the potential detriment. Besides the fact that there are operational expense benefits to the church and certainly benefits to the environment, I'm happy we came back here a second time because I think it's better, right? I think I appreciate you went to the forester and you considered that we could have these plantings, which I think are beneficial for the community. I appreciate that you lowered the height of this structure. I appreciate that you considered painting it, and maybe that makes it less intrusive. And I appreciate that you looked at various locations and other ways to sort of achieve what the church needs to do to cut down its costs and simultaneously support them. I appreciate you all of those things. So I think, in weighing the positive and the negative of this, from my perspective, I think the positive does outweigh the negative, and that you've given real consideration. And, I know you guys wanted to get it done last time, but I'm glad we came back again, and I think it's better.
Thank you, Linda. Further thought?
I would agree.
Same, I also support the application.
So, so I'm torn on a couple of things. I really appreciate lowering the height. I think that's fantastic. I don't know if I want to paint it. I think that's something that concerns me.
I was trying
Then you have
to.
to-
Yeah, so,
You have to keep-
so not only does this create a maintenance issue,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I want to be the guy that says I want to paint it a certain color. So at the end of the day, I'm not really a fan of that. I would like some more consultation with the town forester to make sure that whether this is actually the best possible tree, or to what my colleague mentioned, Ms. Truitt, regarding something that may be more all year round and not have something where the leaves fall off. So once again, outside the purview of this board a little bit in terms of the species, but I would appreciate further consultation regarding the best, with the objective of screening. Not so much just screening when the leaves are on the trees, but 4-season screening. Other than that, I do appreciate the lowering of the unit. I think that's fantastic. I happened to drive past one of these things over the weekend, and 20 feet is scary high, especially in the scale of this lot, the scale of the neighborhood. But across the street, those homes are only a story and a half, so it's almost like the same size of the house, which is probably a little extreme. Where bringing this down, I think, is beneficial. I like the fact that it really, once again, we don't deal with cost, but I think the benefit here of having it really cover the cost of the usage is not only beneficial to the church, but certainly beneficial to everyone around. The fact that this large building will not be consuming as much energy. So with the tweaks that were made, I think I would be in support of the application.
So I'll go, I'm the person who wasn't here last time, so I appreciate all the testimony on both nights. It was so fun to watch, but, I'm a little freaked out about the 60-foot, almost 60-foot variance, the minimum setback accessories, and I have to say, I'm still a little bit freaked out about that, but I could probably get over it because I think the benefit to the community outweighs that. The neighbors are probably not here because a lot of times we know from other testimony, a lot of times people don't get their mail when they mail it, but they're not here, so that is correct. What would make me feel better is if you had an evergreen shading so that it is kind of a modern looking appliance next to a very historic church. I also would have felt better personally if there had been an extensive review of what it would take to put these panels on the roof. And I know the slate roof is a problem and you don't want to do it, and slate is so lovely, but for me personally, I would have liked to have seen that analysis of what it would mean to put those on a roof, which is more traditional and I think more useful, quite honestly, in terms of energy. So, there.
The messing still bother me a little bit, to be honest. Like, it looks very massive, but I do understand like the benefit of the solar panel is definitely everybody's looking for. And also I believe the analysis is, we have some sort of analysis, but again, I don't think it's thorough. I'm wiggling, but if we can further divide the massing a little bit, it will give the surrounding a better look. But yeah, I understand why we want the solar energy.
I'm seeing move forward with the vote.
We would.
I have a motion.
And if somebody wants to make a motion in the affirmative with a particular condition, they should state
Yes.
that particular condition or conditions.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion contingent that you get evergreens that would fit there, if at all possible. I don't know if I can say that. That
Let's
way.
put it this way, let's do
condition on further consultation with the town forester regarding screening that is a four-season screening.
Yeah, a natural Four Seasons.
Correct.
Right.
So, rather than having it.
Do you need to restate that or do so?
This is what Craig said.
Yeah, I mean, you're fine.
Correct.
We got it.
I got it.
Yeah.
So it's conditioned.
Yeah, no,
so
I
you're
was-
making a motion to approve, conditioned on consultation with the township forester as to the most appropriate trees to be installed to provide four-season screening. Is that
That
what
sounds
you-
perfect. Is that acceptable to the applicant? Do we have to get his?
Well, look at it this way, if the town forester says no, it's no. So it's, I mean, we can request it, but at the end of the day, yeah, she's not, well, and then there's concerns about evergreens too, because you have the bases and how big they get and
Yeah,
so it may-
Mediterranean cypress.
it may not fly, but it's gonna be, at least it's gonna have to be discussed.
Right.
Right?
They're invasive?
Just say that we understand the intent, and we would do our best to achieve that.
Right, and I'm sure that she'll do her best to either research it or say that's not gonna fly.
And a minimum of 18 feet at the time of planting as represented by the
Yeah,
applicant's professional engineering plan.
whatever they choose, and then for that, so at least we're gonna be
It's fair.
at that. Anything else regarding your,
What are we doing with the painting? Not painting?
no, I'm not before painting, no. Anything else, a condition from your,
You know, we didn't discuss lighting, but
yeah, we did. That's what you
last
discussed.
time you did. But did
Yes.
you talk about a maximum time of lighting?
It's dusk to dawn.
Okay, oh, it's dusted to dawn.
Yeah, it's to follow the parking lot,
Okay.
so.
Parking, so I'm gonna turn that in.
Anything else? Make that a second.
Second.
Amy Lawrence,
Yes.
Regina Truitt,
Yes.
Priscilla Sarab,
Yes.
Jiajing Peng,
Yes.
Jessica Blatt,
Yes.
Craig Plager.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Appreciate all your time.
I don't have to. And they're beautiful because they're tall and so light. And they're perfect for the subdivision. We have ordinances.
Folks, we're gonna take a 2-minute break, and then we're gonna jump into MW Short Hills.
All right, we'll look at it.
Next up, we have calendar 398624. This matter is carried from June 3rd. It is MW Short Hills LLC.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Susan Rubright. I'm an attorney with Brock Eichler in Roseland, New Jersey. To my right is Christian Dittmer, who is my witness this evening. We are here on behalf of Blair Image Elements, on behalf of MW of Short Hills LLC, which is a mattress warehouse entity. So I'm going to just give a brief introduction, and then I'm going to have Mr. Dittmer discuss the site. And then what I'd like to do is provide the facts. Mr. Dittmer is going to provide the factual basis, and then I'll provide the legal analysis for the variances. The property is 752 Morris Turnpike in the Short Hills section of Milburn Township. It's block 1904, lot 17. The property, as I'm sure you all know, is on a busy, heavily commercially developed portion of Morris Turnpike, including next to and across the roadway from several shopping centers. This portion of Morris Turnpike is unique and busy, as it is also between the split to Route 78 and Route 24, and the exit access way coming from the direction of those roadways. In all, these unique characteristics require that motorists trying to locate the Mattress Warehouse store be able to see the location of the store by the highly recognizable sign to safely maneuver the roadway and to turn into the property. This was this unique circumstance of location was part of the decision regarding the size of the sign, as you will hear. We submitted some photographs of the site as well as some of the surrounding properties, and Mr. Dittmer will discuss that those were from a Google search. We are proposing to install the standard Mattress Warehouse branded sign on the facade. The sign is standard as to lettering, script, and color.
What's their name?
I'm sorry?
What's their name?
There's a, we'll get into that, but it's,
Okay.
yeah,
It's like
so
pull
what's
up this
there,
thing
you
and
know,
they fully illuminate the
right,
sign.
what is there now is a fully conforming sign.
Okay.
What we are proposing, next point, is that we are seeking to permit a sign with 28% maximum wall graphic area, whereas 20% is allowed. And the second variance we're requesting is for a wall graphic height for a sign whose letters range in height from 2 feet 6 inches to 3 foot 8 inches, whereas 2 feet is permitted.
Is there any photos that you've submitted of the existing sign?
Yes, there is, in the initial submission that we made, there is a series of 3 Blair Image Elements
Right. Right.
brand, and it's this, there is, I think it was sheet 2. Yeah, so they're side by side.
Okay.
You see that? Yep. You see that? Okay. So we're requesting the variances under the C2 flexible C, the 2C flexible C standard, the benefits versus the detriments test. Under the C2 standard, the board must also balance the positive and negative criteria. And so, as I indicated, what I would like to do is present Mr. Dittmer with Blair Image Elements, which is the representative of Mattress Warehouse in this matter. As Mr. Dittmer will go through briefly, Blair Image Elements is a sign designer, manufacturer, and installer. Okay, so if we could swear Mr. Dittmer.
Do you swear affirm testimony about to give us tonight's proceeding to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Your name for the record, spelling your name, please.
Christian Dittmer, Dittmer.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Dittmer, if you could just go over briefly with the board, who is Blair Image Elements, and what is your position with them?
Okay, I'm a field services manager with the company. I oversee on-site installations. I run safety while installations are happening, as well as any type of maintenance that's required on site during the process. The company, we are a small company based out of Altoona, Pennsylvania, but we actually have worldwide accounts with most major brands that pretty much anybody would recognize. Pet Supplies Plus, BP, Home Depot. We have a lot of them. All of our signs are custom designed and built in-house. And each one is done per the specs for each customer based on its location.
Has your company done other work with Mattress Warehouse?
Yes, we've done approximately 300 sites in total.
Okay. Now, it's your understanding that as part of our application, we submitted the signage site plan as well as a number of photographs of the subject's site in support of the variance, correct?
Yes.
And who prepared the signage site plan that's part of the submission?
That was a Blair project management staff.
Okay, and then we've just referenced the comparison of the two signs, the existing sign that's there, which meets the ordinance, as well as a mock-up, correct, of what the proposed sign would be like if the board were to grant the variance.
Yes.
And that was also, designed by
Yes,
who was
by
that?
our art department.
By your art department, okay,
Yes.
great, thanks. And then again, there were some photographs that were printed from an internet search of the area in order to show the area as well as other uses and other signage.
Yes,
Is
that's
that correct?
project management team will routinely pull photos if we don't have any readily available for the proposal for a customer using a Google search or whatever else we might have available to us.
And have you been to the property?
Yes.
Okay, and you can describe the surrounding area, but is it your opinion that the surrounding area is as I've described it, as well as what the photographs show in terms of commercial uses and the roadways?
Yes.
Okay, did you drive on the roadway?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Good for you, because I don't do that anymore. Can you identify the space? So Mattress Warehouse is occupies, if we want to take a look at the site photo that was prepared, it's actually an aerial photograph. And is it your understanding that that the Mattress Warehouse is it one of two tenants?
Yes.
All right. And what's the other tenant?
I believe it's Bagels for Us.
All right. And is it surrounded by parking areas? Is it surrounded by green space? I mean, what is it located?
There's a parking area in the front, along the side, I believe somewhere around the back. There's I believe it's a law office to the left of it, ShopRite's across the street. And there's another shopping center immediately before the Mattress Warehouse.
Okay. If you could just describe briefly, what is the process for Blair in designing a sign for the Mattress Warehouse franchise in general, and also with this site?
Once we are contacted by a customer that there's another location that they're thinking about having taking over or moved into or upgrading the sign, we get all the information for that. We'll dispatch a team from either an in-house installer or any of our installers that we work with all over the nation. They go out, they take measurements of the existing signage or the facade where it's going, or even if there's any road signs. They take photos of the surrounding area and all pertinent information that we need. They bring it back to the office. Then it's sent out with a code check by a professional research company to check everything that we possibly can for that. And then everything is turned back over to the project management team and the art department to develop that further with regards to the customer and reaching back out to them with it.
So do you, given the location of this given the location of this building and its location on the highways, do you know does Mattress Warehouse have a typical type of view in order for a sign to be visible to the greatest customer base possible?
Trying to get a 180-degree view on all their storefronts if it's possible. And with that, it's between the facade and 180-degree view is how we base our signage along with the code
was this sign able to, was this property able to achieve that?
With the current sign on there, no, not in my opinion.
Okay. And is that important then because you're not able to achieve the 180-degree view? If that's not attainable, what then does that mean for the type of sign or the size of the sign that you
Go
want to
back a
install?
second. This 180-degree view, how's that determined?
It's a customer brand standard. They like to have their customers be able to see the sign as soon as possible so they know where they're going. If it's somebody passing by or if they're not familiar with the area or they're not familiar that there's a new store there, it actually just helps guide the traffic to them.
So is there a sign, a pylon sign also? in this
No,
facility?
not at this location, there is not.
So the one that says mattress, the pylon that's down by Panera Bread, that's not a pylon sign?
No, because I believe the one for Panera Bread is for the larger shopping center there.
Right,
Bagels for us and currently Mattress Warehouse,
do not have that.
it's just a divorced building separate from that. There's actually a split in the parking lot, and once you get past the small adjoining entrance between the two, I believe there's a curb or some shrubs separating the two of them.
So I'm just trying to get my head around that. So at 180 degrees, you're telling me like, can you drive past it? At what distance is this 180 degrees measured?
That, I don't have that
I mean, I
information.
visited the property and.
Right.
180
No, I understand
degrees,
that.
You can't see it.
They're trying to do it from a typical roadway where we might not have any trees or anything else blocking the view. So as you see, I guess the most notable thing for a Mattress Warehouse is the bright red letters. So as you come up, that's what they try to gain is that 180-degree view. Here, unfortunately, we have just a one-way
Yeah, you're
road
divided roadway, so.
for the most part. So you're not going to get that from the oncoming side. They know that.
But because of that, does that make it more important to Mattress Warehouse to have a sign that's visible,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
that's larger
They're trying,
than?
yes, definitely.
How long has the existing sign been up?
That I don't have that answer. I believe we were brought into the project from Mattress Warehouse. I believe,
I was retained in October, so it must have been sometime around
Yeah.
then.
And you installed the current sign, correct?
Um,
Or your firm?
my firm does. I didn't install this
Yeah,
one.
but I mean, it's your firm
Right.
did this current sign.
Yes. So it would have either been one of our in-house installers, or a Blair crew, or one of our teams that work with us. We use a lot of independent contractors, but they're affiliated with.
So it's been up for 7, 8 months,
Um,
10 months.
At least 6 months. If everything came on in October, yeah, so probably 7 months or so, 8 months.
So I think, I see where you're going with that, like, have we had any issues, have we had any complaints? But I think when you look at the overall roadway system and the fact that there is a myriad of signs in that area, all competing for attention from drivers, as well as when one looks at the sign and relationship to the facade and the fact that it's next door to another use. Aesthetically, that would be our argument as well, that it's just, it matches better. And have we had complaints? That wasn't something that we really looked at. Has anybody driven by
I
it?
wasn't.
No, all right, it sounds like,
By no means. I was
Yeah.
just trying to figure out, I know you refer to it as a highway, but it's really a secondary road, I mean, Route 22 is 10 highways,
Yeah.
a retail highway.
well, there's,
so-
I mean to
Yeah,
interrupt
I
you.
mean, so you have the funky U-turn in front of this thing and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very, you have to go you're going pretty slow when you pass that place if you're doing a U-turn. So-
Well, if you know it's there.
Well, it's
because there's a
it's
good
local-
sign.
It's local knowledge. I mean,
Yeah.
that area to
Well.
me, like the Bagels place is a huge advertising tool. Any Bagels place, that thing goes nonstop. So, please continue.
Right, all right, so, so to the chairman's point, knowing that we would not be able to install the that we would not be able to install a larger sign, but nevertheless wanting to have a sign, was that the reason why the conforming sign was installed pending our ability to come to the board to get the sign that Mattress Warehouse really wants.
Yes.
That's what was asked for. And again, you concur that the variances that we're seeking are 28% maximum wall graphic, where 20% is allowed. And then we're also seeking a wall graphic height for a sign whose letters range in height from 2 feet 6 inches to 3 feet 8 inches, whereas 2 feet is permitted.
Yes.
And would you, there is that range because the sign, the standard branding sign has some capital letters and some lowercase letters.
Correct.
Right, so
Warehouse
that's,
has just one capital letter, all the rest are lowercase in
Right.
that.
and that's the reason why
Yes.
it's varies, all right. And then just provide the board the details of the sign as to lettering, color, script, and the size of the letters we've talked about.
Okay, the general construction on these, faces are all red acrylic, trim cap is red. All the returns, on the backside, or basically the can of the fixture are black aluminum. Red LEDs are used to illuminate, each channel letter. Power supplies and all related wiring are actually housed in an aluminum raceway, that's actually painted to match the facade or the building itself.
So what I'd like to do now is just present the variance rationale under the C2 flexible standard. And then prior to that, if there's any other questions for Mr. Dittmer.
Just confirm the graphic is this, it's very small. We don't know the picture of what it's going to look like exactly.
We
That's
do,
similar to the question.
yeah, and I do apologize for not bringing a board to place the exhibits on, but if,
Right there.
Oh, I don't think I heard that.
Yeah, you do. It's in the back of, it's not attached to that. It's in the back of the application.
I had an initial submission and then a supplemental submission, but the initial submission does have the signage on it, the comparisons.
No, we don't have it, but that's okay.
Be at the end.
Thank you, Mr. Caulfield. Okay. We'll share.
Yes.
They're hogging, but that's okay. Thank you.
Should I proceed with my
Yes, please.
variance? Okay, sure. Thank you. The relief is being requested as noted under the C2 flexible C standard. This standard provides in pertinent part that a board may grant a C2 variance where in an application or appeal relating to a specific piece of property, the purposes of this act, i.e. the municipal land use law, would be advanced by a deviation from the zoning ordinance requirements, and the benefits of the deviation would substantially outweigh any detriment. The Supreme Court of New Jersey considered the C2 variance and gave further direction for its grants in the Kaufman versus Planning Board for Warren Township case, where the court found that the grant of the C2 variance must benefit the community with a better zoning alternative and present an opportunity for improved zoning and planning to benefit the community. And again, under the C2 standard, the board must also balance the positive and negative criteria. So in our opinion, granting the variances here satisfies the C2 standards as to the positive criteria. The positive criteria will further, the sign will further several purposes of the municipal land use law. I would argue purpose A, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in this state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. I'm sorry, it's really late for me. And I've been on a board, so yeah, it gets tedious for the board, I'm sure, as well. At any rate, in our opinion, this really does help to satisfy the safety. Yes, I do talk like this. This satisfies and promotes safety because of the ability of motorists and customers who want to easily be able to find the store. Although, yes, we hope that they're going slow, Mr. Chairman, but it does, in this area, it is a very odd and busy area. G is to provide sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of agricultural, residential, recreational, commercial, and industrial uses, both public and private. And again, this is a sign that is helping to promote a well-known retail brand. And then purpose I is to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. And I would submit that when one views the signs, that the larger sign is actually a more attractive sign than the smaller sign. It helps fill up the space, and it is it's balanced. It's a balanced sign. As to the negative criteria, this is, again, an area that is quite developed. In our opinion, the sign will not be a detriment to the neighborhood. And as discussed, the property is on a busy and heavily commercially developed area, including next to and across the roadway from shopping centers. It's located in a busy and unique portion of Morris Turnpike between the split to the left for Route 78 and Route 24 and the exit access way coming from the direction of those roadways. The unique conditions require that motorists trying to locate the Mattress Warehouse be able to see the location of the store by the highly recognizable sign and safely maneuver the roadway system. The sign is attractive, it's not detrimental, it's well-known, it's a highly recognizable. The second prong of the negative criteria requires that the grant of the variances will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan or the ordinance. And unlike use variances, reconciliation of a dimensional variance with the zone plan and zoning ordinance is, as cited by the Supreme Court of New Jersey in Lang versus Zoning Board of Adjustment, quote, a relatively uncomplicated issue and depends on whether the grounds offered to support the variance, either under subsection C1 or section C2, adequately justify the board's actions in granting an exception from the ordinance requirements. In sum, it's our position, and we hope you will agree, that the positive and negative criteria have been met, supporting the grant of the variances. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Board members have any questions?
Quick one, quick couple. Are there any other signs of this size along Morris Turnpike?
One of the reasons why we submitted the photographs is that while we did not go out and do a sign-by-sign analysis, there are some that are large as well. There are some that are smaller, but it is an array of different size signs.
Okay, and how big was the Calico Corner sign? This is the old Calico Corners.
I don't have that information. Do you know?
No.
You don't know? You don't know.
I don't know.
And are there any other signs along Morris Turnpike that are as long as this one? I don't know if length is part of the ordinance.
No, it's not.
No, just height.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think you sort of answered this by saying you didn't measure, but how does this sign relate? Do you know how it relates to the Bagels for You sign?
I think if we can look at some of the photographs, it's larger. It's definitely larger, but the Bagels for You store, in my opinion, it's not as many letters, and it's not as tall of a building. And also, Bagels for You has a sign on the side of the building, which serves the purpose. To have the sign on the side of the building serves the purpose that we're trying to achieve by having a larger sign on the front, which is to let people know where he is.
Any further questions?
Does the current sign like maximize the dimension limits already? Like on the
That's a conforming sign.
conforming sign, right? I mean, the image scale definitely not the same. It's confusing, at least me, right? If I understand correctly, the maximum byte code is 20%, and we're requiring 25%. and it does not give me any comparison.
You know what, I have to defer to the exhibit that was created by the art department, and there are measurements on that sign. And it was scaled, that's my, you know, that's the profession, it was professionally done by the Blair Group. So, yeah, I mean, but actually, your question proves the point that it's kind of an odd-looking sign. It really is out of measurement, it's out of proportion, and that's another reason why we want to have the sign the size we have it, that we're proposing it.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience regarding this application? Any comments from the audience regarding this application? Close the public portion. Board members, your thoughts?
All right, always gonna say this, I feel like the ordinance exists for a reason, and I think it's to minimize the chaos on an already chaotic stretch of road. Having said that, it's a big facade, so I wait to see what everyone else says.
I'll go. I passed it probably a dozen times in the last week. I think it looks great the way it is. It's, you know, I'm not sure that size necessarily matters. I think somebody has to say that. But, I mean, actually, I think it's actually well spaced and well proportioned for the white banner on top of it. So I see, and actually, to pony on to your point, it's there for a reason. It looks good.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, if we're
there's a
always gonna
mattress
supersede
store
the
down block,
ordinances,
so I
maybe
have
we
to
just
mile down towards Dunkin' Donuts, but, you know, I'm not too sure that.
I would just say that Mattress Warehouse doesn't share your opinion, but.
Well,
that's fine.
Yeah, no.
Public portion is closed.
Oh, I'm sorry, strike that, I didn't realize.
Something to go next year. I think that's, the sign that's proposed is completely out of keeping for the area. That's something I would expect to see on 22 or some massive shopping thoroughfare. This building also benefits from being considerably closer to the street than almost anything else proposed in the exhibit, which is a benefit to this facility. I think the current sign that's on it, also, I think it looks great. I like the fact it's conforming. And I don't think this alternative that's being proposed is one that's even within the reason. So I would not at all, approve this application.
I'll just add, I would have really liked to have seen some kind of exhibit showing what the measurements were for other signs along, along the road. Because I think, what's being proposed looks completely out of scale for the streetscape. But I would be curious what the other, how the other signs measure in relation to what's being proposed.
On the Milburn side, of course.
Yes,
Besides
exactly.
Springfield and-
Yes, on the Milburn side, yep.
Any other thoughts? Would you like to move forward and vote?
One thing that I would like to ask the board is if we were to come back with, and I appreciate, Mr. Caulfield, your opinion, and I didn't mean to, be rude about it. Opinions can vary. What I would like to do is to ask the board to perhaps adjourn it if we could come back with something perhaps slightly, and I know slightly bigger, but perhaps not to the extent of the variance that we're asking for. Would you like to see something to that effect?
Well, that's your call.
No, I know, but would you allow us to adjourn to another?
We can always do that.
Yeah.
You may also want to think about retaining a professional planner to provide the proofs and be able to answer the questions that the various board members had as to signage in the area and how that relates to whatever you're proposing.
Okay. All right. If we could, is that? 1 second, if you don't mind. I know you have another.
Dates. I know.
Maybe here for now, they're gonna have Halloween decorations. The date, yeah.
How small it is measurement.
I meant that in the
It's just all like.
We do have another application yet.
I know, I'm sorry, okay. Okay, so could we adjourn this to,
October 7th.
I'm sorry?
October 7th.
October 7th?
We only have one meeting in September.
October, yeah, you know what, I figured it's July, October 7th.
It's probably not much left for this, I don't know.
Well,
I
Well, this was a half an hour, so I mean, I try to be
No, I get it.
prepared so that we can move quickly through applications. If you have something before that, it would be appreciated, and we don't need to adjourn it to a certain date at this point, because I'd have to renotice anyway.
No,
Correct.
Well, you have to renotice unless you're seeking other variances.
Right, well, I guess if we're seeking a different, yeah, I mean, if we're gonna be reducing the size,
Technically, we reduce,
Yes.
So
right,
you would need to renotice.
yeah, yeah, I know.
Yeah, so we've got increasing things.
So are we still looking for another date, or we're?
Yeah, let's go to 2 seconds here, so it makes sense, because our schedule is.
I know on the 19th, Priscilla's not gonna be here. And you're not gonna be here, so I know there will be three.
Of August?
Yeah. There's no D in this, but I'm still going to have. Well, Gary and
Yeah, trying
John
to
will be 1, 2, 3. I'll still have 6. I could do.
What else we have on that date?
I'm not really sure. Paper mill maybe,
Well, we do that first anyway.
and another use on Mars Turnpike.
Do what?
I
A use
use
variance?
for a vet group. An emergency vet center.
So let's put you on for that.
I'm sorry,
19th, August
19th
19th,
August.
August, oh, that would be great, thank you,
Okay.
appreciate it.
We'll, see what you got.
All right, so if there's an additional subsequent submittal, then submission, I
Yep.
will send it.
For those playing
Thank
along
you.
at home, please note calendar 398624 MW of Short Hills will be carried to August 19th. No further notice. Please look at the website for any changes or visit town hall. I leave my Next up, we have calendar 398324 on 12 Newburgh Road. Come on down.
Contrary to what the agenda says, they are not looking to install.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that was a mischaracterization of our application.
Solar clip.
You're right, I know, that's why.
Right variance.
While it is compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. I know it's,
Just gotta take a second or so to get our.
Right, Counselor?
yes.
Let it rip.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Attorney Dennis Francis, 37 Liberty Street, Little Ferry, New Jersey. On behalf of the applicants, Amar KAK and Nova Bronstein. They are the property owners at 112 Canoe Brook Road here within your borough, located at block 5102, lot 17 in the R5 zone. Currently, the property houses a one-family house. The application this evening before you, pursuant to the plans which were submitted, is to renovate and expand that one-family home. As a result of that proposed expansion, there are 5 in total variances requested of your board this evening. The first variance would be the maximum floor ratio size to which your municipality has in this zone, a maximum of 30%, whereby the applicant proposes a floor area ratio of 36%. The professional will testify as to exactly what square footage that means in overage. The other 4 variances are bulk C variances, the first being a minimum size side yard setback.
whereby because the building currently is over 18 feet in height, 12 feet is required and 10.99 feet is existing. In line with that same variance, because we're increasing the height, that same variance is also required, 10.99 feet. Existing, 16 feet required. The third variance is the combined side yard setback, to which minimum side yard setback of 35% of the lot width is required, and we have 30%. And then finally, the maximum front yard coverage, where the ordinance has a maximum front yard coverage of 30%, and we have a proposed 38%. I know the hour is late. I know you have been here some time. I'd like to call up the first witness. I have two professionals here this evening to testify. Those are the ones who prepared the plans that are before you. First being Harry Tuvel, Tuvel. He's a professional engineer and professional planner in the state of New Jersey. I'm going to have him testify first on the professional engineering side. And next, I'll have our professional architect, Mr. Joseph Donato, testify as to the architectural plans, and then bring back Harry to testify from the planning perspective as a professional planner. So with that said, I'd like to have Mr. Harry Tuvel be sworn in.
Do you swear from testimony about the given tonight's proceeding to be true, whole truth, and but the truth?
I do.
Your name for the record is spelled.
Harry, last name Tuvel, Tuvel.
Thank you.
Mr. Tuvel, why don't you give the board your educational background and the licenses you hold in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I have a bachelor's and master's of science degrees in civil engineering from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, and I've been a professional engineer for over 40 years and a professional planner for about 30 years.
Have you ever testified before this board before?
If I have, it's been a while. I don't think I testified about a couple of years ago in Maplewood, but this is Milburn, so I know those are two different towns.
Are the licenses that you hold still in good standing today?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I just renewed everything for 3 more years.
Okay. And when you did testify before at Maplewood, you were accepted as a professional engineer, professional planner?
Yes, I was.
Mr. Chairman, we ask them to qualify as a professional.
Accepted by the school.
Thank you. Mr. Valley, you heard me give a brief overview. I'd like you to take the board quickly through the engineering aspects of the application.
Okay, so as was discussed, this is a 14,626 existing square foot lot with an existing one-family home located on the south side of Canoe Brook Road. The northerly side of Canoe Brook Road is, I believe it's not entirely, it's mostly right-of-way for Kennedy Parkway. So that area north on the other side of the street here along Canoe Brook Road is an undeveloped forested area. So all the houses face that area on Canoe Brook Road. So what is proposed here is to build on the westerly side of the home, to build a second-story addition of 157 square feet on the westerly side, and then an additional 550 square foot two-story addition at the rear of the property. And then there's also an additional small 108 square foot porch extension on the front side of the property. And then you'll see the architect's renderings. And that's a total of 842 square feet of additional living space. Well, not living space, the porch is not living space, but 550 and 157 square feet are the additional living space. Also a feature of this new development is that the driveway that's on the easterly side of the property will be removed. It currently goes back to a a garage that's located at the rear of the existing house. And that will be eliminated and there will be a new two-car garage located in the front of the house. And that driveway going to the back of the house will be eliminated, and that driveway is in the side yard. And even though that will become more of a true side yard and a true buffered, true side yard with the removal of that driveway. The other feature to this engineering design is that seepage pits for the roof drainage will be located in the new driveway in front of the house, and the drainage calculation has been included on the plan, and I believe that drainage calculation is in conformance with Millburn requirements. That's right, I did do another drainage calculation in Millburn, but I didn't have to come before the board for it. So I did do another job in Millburn within the last couple of years. I think that basically covers it. It covers the engineering aspects of this. As Mr. Francis went over, we do have variances for the existing nonconformities of side yard and an FAR variance, which is probably the main variance. And then there's also the front yard coverage variance, which is created by the addition of the new driveway in front of the home.
Now, does the proposed expansion increase the side yard setback conditions?
No,
Over there now?
they remain exactly the same.
So essentially, we're going up on that same line, is that correct?
Correct.
And as far as the overall building coverage or maximum coverage, this property falls within that limitation, is that correct?
Yes, it does. I will go into that further with my testimony. I would also point out that even with the addition of the two-story addition in the rear of the home, we still have a 56 foot rear yard setback where only 18.75 is required. So the rear yard is still quite large, even with that two-story addition constructed in the rear.
Question. I thought you said that the FAR that's being proposed is at 36%. Is that correct? Does the plan say 34%, at least the ones I'm looking at?
The chart, in attachment F says 38%.
The plan I have has 36%.
On the
And
FAR.
and the front yard coverage is 38%.
I got 38% on FAR here, and 34%, that's combined side yard. So I don't know these numbers, John,
I have 34% as FAR.
but this is 38% here.
I looked at it again with the architect while we were waiting to see
Numbers,
and I
no
think,
numbers on this application. This is my problem here, like, I'm trying to dive it all together, and you have nothing on your attachment F, you have nothing on your attachment E, nothing, it's all just blank stuff.
Well, actually, yeah, there's, where is it?
they're looking at the application.
You keep saying 36%, but this all says 34%.
How do you submit this application?
Because mine has, unless they made copies before they, because my copy, the original has attachment A.
Filled out?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I
The existing usages were all filled out?
Oh, no.
So I don't have any square footage.
Yeah,
So,
it's just percentage.
nothing matches up.
I see what you're saying, it doesn't have the existing.
Yeah, right, so I don't know where we are, and on top of that, none of the numbers match up.
Well, this attachment A indicates you're seeking 34.
Right, but attachment F has it 38. And then this shows 34.
And it also shows 38% front yard coverage.
And you have max front yard of 38,
which is the
and
same.
Okay, so can
So,
we?
Mr. Tabell, is there anything on your plans? that
Yes,
shows
there-
the wait, hold on.
Yeah, there's a zoning schedule on.
No, I understand, I see zoning schedule, right, but you have here, to the chairman's point, on the left-hand side, you have proposed FAR 34%. Here, you have proposed FAR 36%. So that's a discrepancy. And you don't do a calculation to determine how you got to the 36% or how you got to the 22% existing.
want all those numbers, folks. We're not moving forward, we get all the numbers. The other thing I want to know is how the current house is at 32% and your proposed house is at 29. Tell me that.
I'm sorry?
That house right now, the current house, you're saying is 32 feet high. And you're saying your proposed house is 29 feet high.
Well, 29.99, 30 feet.
Right. I don't see how that current house you have there is 32 feet high.
I would like to, on my attachment B denial letter, I did indicate that I was not given any existing and proposed grades, so I was not able to determine the height.
I'm not going to entertain this application until we have all the numbers.
Mr. Chairman, when you mean by all the numbers, you mean the summary of the variances requested?
Yeah, people filled out properly. I mean, I got 38, 34, 36.
Yeah, all the documentation should be consistent with each other, and any,
What'd you notice?
any existing.
I did 36. Your zoning denial letter said 34.
Well, and your attachment F says 38. And I also think you have a discrepancy with your combined side yard setback. You're showing your proposed usage of 30, but here it shows 34.12.
As I was saying, it's important not just to make sure that everything matches up and is accurate, but you provide the calculations as to how you get to these particular percentages.
Yeah, that definitely wasn't provided.
We have-
I agree with that.
I think you have to go back and sharpen your pencils, guys. I'm not gonna hear this. I'm not gonna play games and guessing with the numbers.
Okay.
Okay, because you're asking for, you're asking for a lot here, right? A brand new home with a lot of variances on it. So we want, the numbers have to be tight.
I understand.
So I don't know when we can see again, but we gotta put it together. So when's this one gonna be looked at?
Probably October.
October it is.
October 6th, October 7th.
And go over all the numbers, okay? Yeah. I can tell you there's more discrepancies in here. There's no question. These aren't legit. Because I can say right now, the existing home is not 32 feet high. It's not.
Proposed one, yeah.
Yeah. It's a story and a half. Right. Okay. So type it all up.
So wait, so then in regard to the notice?
Yeah.
What we're gonna do is, we'll carry it,
Right.
okay, to a date certain, but whether you need for jurisdictional purposes to renotice is up to you,
Absolutely,
okay? Because if some things are wrong, you gotta get them correct.
absolutely. And what date was that, October 6th or 7th?
October 7th.
7th?
And 7.
And 7th.
So calendar 398327 will be carried to October 7th. No further notice. Any changes or corrections will be noted on the website or at town hall.
With the caveat that the applicant reserves the right to renotice, should it find that it needs to for jurisdiction purposes.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further in the audience tonight that is not on the agenda? No.
Motion to adjourn.
In a second? All those in favor?
Yeah.
Have a good evening.